Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second and final part of what if Naruto was trained by Jiraiya before the academy. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
After waking up, Naruto began preparing for his physical workout so that he could begin the day. He recalled that yesterday's leaf cutting exercise had been quite difficult, and Jiraiya had mentioned that today's training would be more difficult. He was thrilled because he knew it would strengthen him. As he stretched, he noticed that his sensei was already awake and meditating on the water, just as he had forced the yellow-headed boy to do every night. After completing all of the katas in the taijutsu style, Naruto ran 3 laps around the compound. He began by performing push-ups, followed by sit-ups, squats, and other exercises. After completing the physical exercise, he sat down next to Jiraiya on the water and began to meditate in order to restore his chakra so that he wouldn't be weak when the training began. When they had completed their training, Naruto and Jiraiya got up to begin the next phase of their training. After performing a one-handed seal, Naruto declared, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, and he made a clone Euro, the one that would attend the academy today. While Naruto stayed behind to begin his training, the clone entered the main house, put on the clothes he typically wears, and left for the academy. In order to find a good peeking spot for his research, Naruto also made a clone of himself. The clone dressed and went toward the hot springs. Jiraiya directed her gaze at the boy and said, Naruto, we are going to the Forest of Death again, because you will be using a lot of clones again for today's training. As they made their way to the front entrance, Naruto asked, Okay, what was that clone for Sensei? Oh, don't worry, Jiraiya said, smiling as he looked at the boy. I sent that clone to check out the forest before we get there to make sure there is no one there. After Jiraiya placed a hand on Naruto's head, they vanished in a cloud of smoke and resurfaced in the Forest of Death, where they would train further to become masters of the wind element. They were in a sizable clearing today as opposed to the previous day, when they were in the middle of the forest. Jiraiya took his hand off the boy's head and walked past the clearing. After performing a few fast hand seals, he said, Doden, Doryu Juheki, Earth Style, Earth Flow Rampart, and a big, broad ridge appeared out of the ground. As Jiraiya stood atop the ridge and Naruto stood on the ground, gazing up at his sensei, Jiraiya noticed something was missing. He performed another set of hand seals before declaring, Suiten, Takitsubo no Jutsu, Water Style, Waterfall Basin, and a waterfall began to fall from the ridge's summit. Jiraiya leapt down, only thinking that something was missing. A wall arose from the ground in front of the waterfall as Jiraiya approached it and passed through a few more hand seals before saying, Doden, Doryu Heki no Jutsu, Earth Style, Earth Wall. He walked back toward the boy with the yellow head after building another earth wall next to the first one. Jiraiya pointed to the waterfall and said, All right, Gaki, all you have to do is split the waterfall with your chakra alone. He leapt onto the earth wall and used his chakra to split the waterfall, demonstrating to the yellow-headed boy what he was talking about. I'll be stronger after that, right? Naruto said, glancing at his sensei. As she looked at the boy, Jiraiya said, Yeah, then I can teach you more jutsus. All right, let's go, Naruto yelled, leaping to his feet. After performing a single-handed seal, Naruto declared, Multi-Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, Taju Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. And he made 50 clones to accompany him in the exercise. Jiraiya found a place to sit and meditate while the boy was performing the exercise after he and the clones leapt on the earth walls and began pushing their chakra in the waterfall in the hopes of splitting it. This is 6 hours later. The clone at the academy was dispelled, giving Naruto all of his school-related experience and knowledge. Sasuke attempted to fight him all day long, but the clone chose not to fight because he knew his cover might be exposed. After successfully severing the waterfall, Naruto was taking a break to replenish his chakra in preparation for learning a combination ninjutsu. After congratulating the yellow-headed boy, Jiraiya returned to her meditation because they would continue their training here because they could cause more damage in the forest than in the compound. Naruto stood up after regaining some of his chakra and turned to face his sensei. Gazing at the man before him, Naruto said, All right, let's get started, sensei. Jiraiya got up from the rock he was sitting on and said, Okay. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, Summon the toad. After biting his thumb and drawing some for the summoning jutsu, Naruto placed the blood on his right palm and performed the hand seals using the same amount of chakra he had previously used to call forth Gamakino. He then uttered the words, Kachiyose no Jutsu. Summoning Jutsu. and called forth the medium-sized toad he had trained with. "Hello Naruto-san, are you ready now?" Gamakino said, glancing at the boy. "Believe it," Naruto said, glancing at the nearly his size toad. "Okay Naruto, you don't really need any hand seals for this jutsu since you just combine your chakra with the toad to perform. But know that you have to insert your chakra at the right time or it won't work," Jiraiya told the child. After the toad completed a series of hand seals, Naruto placed his hand on his back. The two of them yelled, "Gamakanbi no jutsu." Sweden. Toad combination jutsu. Water bullet, and a medium-sized water ball emerged from the toad's mouth, striking the tree they were using as a target and successfully turning it into a pile of wood cubes. Jiraiya approached Naruto to explain the jutsu after his eyes widened at the water ball's power. "You can return now, Gamakino," Jiraiya said, glancing at the toad. Gamakino said, "Thank you, Jiraiya-sama," before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. You see Naruto, a regular water ball would just blow the tree off the trunks, but when you had the wind chakra to it the water ball can most likely go through anything and destroy it, Jiraiya told the child. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Let's go get something to eat before I teach you another jutsu." Except for the third Hokage, Tuchi, Ayame, and the tailor who made Naruto's clothing, no one in the village knew that Jiraiya was training Naruto. They didn't want anyone to know just yet because then it would be suspicious of the village's legendary toad sage to be training the demon brat. When Jiraiya placed a hand on his pupil's head, they vanished in a cloud of smoke and resurfaced in the Namikaze compound. Jiraiya and Naruto noticed some children outside the compound as soon as they arrived, so Naruto went to the gates and Jiraiya went inside. When Naruto opened the door, he saw Shino, Choji, and Shikamaru in front of the gates. Naruto said, glancing at his friends, "Hey guys, what are you doing here?" Shikamaru said, "To chill, what else?" as he entered the compound. "Oh," Naruto remarked as he made his way to the lake where they would relax. Naruto went inside to inform Jiraiya that he had some friends over, while the boys sat by the lake. Naruto looked at the man and said, "Gigi, I have some friends over, so I can learn the jutsu after they leave, okay?" Jiraiya looked at the boy as he drank some tea and said, "I'll be out in a minute." Naruto looked at the man and said, "Okay," having Sasuke around. In order to kill his brother, Sasuke needed to learn the dojutsu as quickly as possible, so he was training with his Sharingan in his clan compound. Once more, a man wearing a long white coat and a mask materialized in front of him. He considered attacking the man, but changed his mind. Looking at him, the man in the mask said, "I'm here to help you." Sasuke looked at the man and said, "Go on." The man who was staring at him said, "If you don't want to waste your chakra, here is what you should start with." After gathering some chakra at the base of his feet, the man walked up and down the tree, and Sasuke noticed how much chakra he had used with his Sharingan. Before he vanished from the compound, the man said, "It's called the tree climbing exercise. You can't use too much chakra because the tree will blow up, and you can't use too little because you will fall down." After gathering the same amount of chakra, Sasuke attempted to ascend the tree as the man had demonstrated, but the tree simply exploded, sending him to the ground. Sasuke stood up and tried again, but this time he used less chakra than the first time. He fell after taking about 5 steps, and he realized that he needed to maintain the same chakra throughout the ascent. Sasuke climbed the tree once more, this time walking all the way to the top. This time, he decided to run because he thought it would help him feel better. Seeing the outcome of the tree climbing exercise, Sasuke spent the entire time reviewing his fire jutsu arsenal. The Namikaze compound. Jiraiya left the house and went to the small lake in the back of the compound, where she saw Naruto chatting with his friends. Even though none of them noticed, Jiraiya approached them and silently sat behind them. Suddenly frightening the living daylights out of them, Jiraiya asked, "What are you guys talking about?" Gazing at the man, Naruto screamed, "Don't be sneaking up on people like that." Jiraiya smacked him on the head and said, "Shut up." "Hey Shikamaru, how are you?" Jiraiya asked, glancing at the boy. Shikamaru bowed to the man and said, "I'm fine, Jiraiya-sama." Jiraiya placed a hand on the boy's shoulder and asked, "How is your dad?" Shikamaru grinned and said, "He's fine, but he's a drag." Jiraiya said, "You are from the Aburame clan, right?" as she glanced at Shino. Shino said, "Yes, Jiraiya-sama," bowing before the man. As Jiraiya grinned at Choji, she added, "And you are from the Akamichi clan." "Guys, I'll have to cut your time short, but I'll give you something to do." "Don't tell anyone that I'm the one who gave it to you, since I do not want the council to know that I'm here," Jiraiya said as he looked at the child. "Yes, sir," they all said simultaneously. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, go get ready." Naruto told the boys, "I'll be right back," as he made his way to the house where his room was. "Shikamaru, come here," Jiraiya said, pulling 3 pieces of paper out of his pocket. He gave Shikamaru a piece of paper, and he gave the other 2 boys the same. Choji and Shino accepted the papers and stood staring at the man in confusion. Gazing at them, Jiraiya said, "Direct your chakra towards the paper." Shino's paper turned to dust, Shikamaru's paper burned, and Choji's paper also turned to dust. "Interesting," Jiraiya said, grinning at them. "It appears that Shikamaru can use fire-based jutsus, and you too can use earth-based jutsus." Choji looked at the man and said, "That's what this was for." Jiraiya laughed when Shikamaru remarked, "Fire, what a drag." Jiraiya approached a tree near the lake, picked up a leaf from one of the branches, and gave it to Shikamaru. He also picked up 2 rocks and gave one to Shino and one to Choji. "Shikamaru, all you have to do is burn this leaf with your chakra. It will be difficult, so ask your father for help and anyone else you can find," Jiraiya told the child. "Choji, Shino, yours will be harder because it's a rock, but all you have to do is split the rock with your chakra. Ask anyone that you can for help, and once you finish it, find me," Jiraiya said with a grin on his face. "Get started now, and I'll see you guys around," Jiraiya said with a smile. Each of them tried to follow Jiraiya's instructions as they left the compound, but they were instructed not to tell anyone who had given them it. Shikamaru found it to be a significant drag, even though it was the first thing that kept him focused, because he had other work to do in addition to his household duties. With just his shinobi pants and his sensei ready for training, Naruto left the house. He looked around, but he did not see the boys, so he knew they had already left. Naruto looked at the man and said, "Okay, Sensei, I'm ready." "All right, Naruto, in about 4 months I'll be leaving the village to find more information about Uchiha Madara from some of my spies. In 4 months I'll be training you to be able to take care of yourself in battle. You will be able to fight on equal ground with any Chunin level shinobis, and with your speed and stealth ability you will be able to leave with your life against some low junins. I taught you the combination jutsu because it will help you in battle against stronger opponents, and summon some battle toads to help you in battle. By the time you graduate I'll be back to train you some more, and we can have some more fun then. Before I leave you will have to master one more element, and that is fire, because you get to use fire with the toads a lot since they use the oil. Right now we'll start with your fire training," said Jiraiya staring at the kid. "Why do you have to leave?" Naruto asked, grinning sadly at the man. According to Jiraiya, who was grinning at the boy, "Because I have to find out more about Madara for your protection. I'll teach you your mother's fighting style once you complete your fire element training," Jiraiya said, grinning at the boy. "Awesome. What should I do?" Naruto asked, grinning broadly as he looked at the man. Jiraiya took a leaf from the tree branch and placed it in his palm before it caught fire. "First, this is just like what you had to do for the wind element, but instead of splitting the leaf you want to burn it," he said. "Make some clones," Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy. After performing the single-handed seal, Naruto declared, "Multi-Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Taju Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." And 100 clones with identical smiles materialized all around him. Both Jiraiya and the fox gave them advice as they began the exercise, and they each took a leaf from the tree. Naruto was pleased that he was making progress in his training because some of the leaves were already emitting smoke, but they had not yet caught fire. Since he only needed to channel it to the leaf rather than make it as thin as possible, he found this training to be simpler than the one he had to complete for his wind chakra. Naruto worked on the exercise for the remainder of the night, and he was pleased to have finished it before his meditation period. He was also pleased to have finally been prepared to learn some ninjutsus. 1 week later, after mastering the fire element, Naruto learned his mother's taijutsu style during the last week instead of learning any ninjutsu from the Toad Sage. Shikamaru worked tirelessly on the exercise, and 5 days later, with his father's assistance, he finally mastered it. He also trained with his father to increase his chakra reserve and learned the water walking exercise. Sasuke spent his time honing his Sharingan. He would use his dojutsu in every academy spar, but his current goal was to test his skills against Naruto, who never wanted to engage in combat. Although Shino and Choji haven't completed the exercise yet, they have been practicing taijutsu and chakra reserve with their family. However, they have yet to disclose the source of the rock idea. After spending all of his time learning the Uzumaki taijutsu style, which involved mass movements and suited Naruto's lightning fast speed. Naruto was now prepared to learn some ninjutsus. He was working on a seal that could instantly heat up instant ramen cups and learned a few tricks about seals, such as how to seal items in storage scrolls. Naruto was glad that his sensei was taking his time training him, and he was stretching when he woke up in the morning to prepare for his training day. After completing the physical exercise, Jiraiya made him put weights on his arms and legs so he could increase his hitting power by punching and kicking the tree in the center of the training area. After completing the exercise approximately an hour later, Naruto went inside to eat before Jiraiya woke up and exhausted him. After Jiraiya woke up and showered, he went downstairs to find a cup of tea and some prepared food. He drank the tea and ate the food before going outside to find Naruto waiting for him. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "All right, Naruto, today we work on your reflexes." Naruto asked, glancing at the man, "What are we doing?" Jiraiya bit his thumb, performed some quick hand seals, and then uttered the words, "Kachiyose no jutsu." Summoning jutsu. A nervous smile appeared on Naruto's face as he looked at him, unsure of what his sensei was planning. "While these toads are attempting to strike you with their tongues, Naruto, you will execute every hand seal I taught you in order," Jiraiya said, grinning at the boy. Naruto yelled, "What?" as he was ready to approach the legendary ninja. He was struck in the legs and back by two strong objects, fell to the ground, and turned to see the toads staring at him. "Start now," Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy who was laughing. While avoiding the two toads' long, swift tongues, Naruto began to go through every single hand seal he was familiar with. It got worse as his body began to ache and he slowed down, allowing both toads to hit him. At first, he was doing terrible because each time he dodged one, the other would hit him. Suppose that Jiraiya was working Naruto to death, and he knew that it was for his strength that he needed to rest in the hot spring at the end of the day. After those training sessions, Naruto would have spent weeks in the hospital, so he was relieved to have the fox's healing ability. After a month, Jiraiya informed Naruto that the fourth Hokage was a seals master, so Naruto spent some time learning about seals with his sensei over the past month. He was thrilled to finish the heating seal and was able to work much more quickly than before. By calling forth the toads every day, Jiraiya forced Naruto to constantly practice his dodging skills while also honing his throwing abilities. Although Naruto was eager to learn ninjutsus, he was prepared to wait for the ninjutsu training because he was aware that all the other skills were superior to learning any ninjutsu. Given that Naruto was a well-known prankster in the village, Jiraiya's increased stealth was detrimental to the community. They would play hide and seek in the forest of death with a couple of toads after he woke the boy up earlier than usual. With the exception of ninjutsu, the boy practiced everything. He also worked on chakra control exercises and learned how to sense people's chakras from the toad sage. Jiraiya grinned at the boy and said, "You are finally ready for some ninjutsu training." "Yippee!" exclaimed Naruto, leaping up and down while grinning broadly. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Calm down, make some clones. I want you to learn these jutsus quickly so that we can move on." Declaring, Taju Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Multi-Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto performed the single-handed seal. Jiraiya grinned at him and realized that he wasn't a showman and that he was prepared to learn the jutsus after he made 10 clones to work with him. "All right." Naruto split the clones into two groups, Jiraiya said, grinning at the boy. The clones were split up into two groups of 5 by Naruto, and they waited for instructions in front of the toad sage. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, the first jutsu that I'm going to teach you today is called the Fireball Jutsu." With a glance at him, Jiraiya said, "Let me show you how it works." After performing a series of rapid hand seals, the toad sage inhaled deeply before uttering the words, "Katen. Enden. Fire style. Fireball." A stream of fire erupted from his mouth, converting one of the practice dummies to ash. Naruto exclaimed, "Wow," as he gazed at the man with the stars in his eyes. Jiraiya showed him each hand seal individually and said, "Here are the hand seals." Naruto quickly performed the same hand seals before taking a breath and uttering the words, "Katen. Enden. Fire style. Fireball." A tiny jet of fire emerged from his mouth, only a few feet away from where he was standing. Although he knew he had time to finish learning the jutsu, Naruto scowled that he did not acquire it immediately. Jiraiya smiled as he looked at the boy, knowing that he had a lot of potential just waiting to be used. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Grow the chakra in your chest and stomach and add more chakra." Naruto looked at his sensei and said, "Okay." A couple of hours later, Before taking a breath, Naruto performed the hand seals once more. Then, he uttered the words, Kaden, Enden, Fire Style, Fireball, and a jet of fire the size of Jiraiya's appeared from his mouth, striking the practice dummy and turning it to ashes. Finally being able to use the jutsu like his sensei, Naruto leapt up and down, but Jiraiya's fireball was stronger and hotter than Naruto's. Since Naruto was still in the academy and could perform a fireball like that, Jiraiya knew he was doing well. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, now the clones. One group fights using ninjutsu, while the other group just dodges and uses taijutsu. Together, the clones said, sure, and the frenzied and perilous spar began. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, now Naruto, since we are still training, you have to meditate to gain some of your chakra back. Naruto jumped into the water and said, okay. He then sat on the chilly water in his meditative position and began to meditate while the clones were still fighting. Naruto went inside to get something to eat after meditating for an hour while listening to the clones' cacophony. Before returning outside for his training, he ate some rice with pork and some vegetables that he had prepared during the morning. Jiraiya was waiting outside for Naruto to finish his meditation because he had eaten some food during that time. When Naruto stepped outside, Jiraiya was waiting for him. Alright, Naruto, you're learning 2 more jutsus today, Jiraiya remarked, glancing at the boy. Yeah, said Naruto, leaping to his feet. All the clones had already been vanquished, and Naruto had regained their experience. Jiraiya said, Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Fire Style. Grand Fireball Jutsu. After performing a few quick hand seals, a large fireball emerged from his mouth, larger than the previous jutsu he had learned from Jiraiya, and he recalled that Sasuke had used the jutsu against him during the battle at the academy. Rewind. It was time for them to return to class, but Naruto, Shino, Choji, Shikamaru, Gamakichi, and Gamatatsu were still lounging on the academy's roof. After sending Gamakichi and Gamatatsu home, Naruto went down. When they returned to the academy's playing field, Sasuke was searching for Naruto and wanted to fight him before they had to leave for class. Hey Dobi, fight me, Sasuke commanded, glancing at the boy. Naruto looked at him and said, Teme, don't feel like it. Sakura, wearing a bandage over her nose, yelled, don't insult Sasuke. Baka, and all the Uchiha fangirls joined her in their greed. Naruto looked at Sakura and said, shut up, using his superior Uchihas. Are better than you tone, Sasuke said. I said fight me, or are you scared? Sure, Naruto replied as he assumed the fox taijutsu stance. They faced one another as Sasuke adopted his family manner. Sakura said, heart in her eyes, you see, Ino. Pig Sasuke. Is fighting for my honor. Sasuke looked at the girl and said, as if, but Sasuke. Sakura stammered as she spoke. With an Akamaru bark, Kiba yelled, kick his ass Naruto. Fangirls yelled, that Baka can't beat Sasuke. Sasuke ran toward him and performed some hand seals, saying, I'm fighting him to prove that I'm better than him. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Fire Style. Grand Fireball Jutsu, he said, as a large fireball erupted from his mouth and headed directly for Naruto. Kawarimi no Jutsu. Replacement Jutsu, Naruto said before replacing himself with a log. Sasuke turned around and punched Naruto in the face and then in the stomach, sending him a few feet back and causing all the fangirls to scream. Naruto got up and picked himself up after the log burned down and he appeared behind Sasuke grinning. To prepare for Sasuke, Naruto leapt into the air and flipped backwards. He then charged at him with a barrage of punches and kicks, but this time Naruto dodged and blocked them all. Finally, he punched him in the face and kicked him in the ribs, knocking him down while all the fangirls yelled at him and some of them even threatened to join the fight. After saying, Kaden. Housenka no Jutsu. Fire Style. Mythical Fire Phoenix Jutsu, he stood up and began performing some hand seals. As everyone leapt out of his way, a number of fireballs shot out of his mouth in Naruto's direction. Naruto used his speed to dodge the fireballs and move in front of Sasuke, who then kicked him in the stomach, punched him in the chest, and sent him flying with a strong kick. After flipping in midair and landing on his feet with blood on the side of his lips, Sasuke charged at Naruto, his rage building. He punched the yellow-headed boy, but Naruto dodged him before he could sweep beneath him, sending the Uchiha flying. Sasuke was about to land a kick at Naruto's head, but Naruto kicked it away with a kick of his own. After falling to his feet, Sasuke punched Naruto in the face, causing some blood to trickle from the yellow-haired boy's mouth. The end of the flashback. Looking at the boy, Jiraiya said, "Here are the hand seals and you know what to do when learning a fire jutsu." "Yes, sir," Naruto said as he began using the jutsu. After performing the proper hand seals, Naruto said, "Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu," and a large ball of fire shot out of his mouth, heading for nothing in particular. Naruto had already learned how to gather chakra to perform a fire jutsu by this point. In order to avoid wasting any chakra, Naruto stopped the jutsu after maintaining the fireball for approximately a minute. Naruto was happy that he had learned the jutsu and was aware that each time he trained with the legendary ninja, he was becoming stronger. 3 months later, Jiraiya had just 1 month left before she had to leave the village to gather information about Uchiha Madara, the legendary Sharingan wielder. Although he did not want to abandon the boy once more, he was aware that Naruto had made friends and was capable of handling any danger on his own. Jiraiya made the decision to train the boy non-stop this month in order to teach him everything he needed to know before departing. The Fireball Jutsu, the Great Fireball Jutsu, the Fire-Blowing Jutsu, which was primarily used with the toads in battle to ignite the toad oil, the Great Breakthrough Jutsu, and the Wild Wind Jutsu Ayuro, which was similar to the Great Breakthrough but wider for fighting opponents who were dispersed Ayuro, were all mastered by Naruto in the last 3 months. When Shikamaru showed up one day, Jiraiya taught him the Great Fireball Jutsu, which he spent a month perfecting. When his father saw him practicing, he asked who had taught him, but he kept it a secret, claiming to have found it in the library. After completing the rock exercise and learning the earth wall jutsu from Jiraiya, Choji and Shino both turned around. A month ago, Flashback Jutsu. Sitting atop a rock in the training area, Jiraiya observed his pupil as he struggled to execute the Wild Wind Jutsu. After Shino and Choji arrived at the compound, they surveyed the area before rapping on the gates. Jiraiya proceeded to the entrance and opened the door to discover the Aburame and Akamichi heirs standing in front of him. "Hey, how are you?" Jiraiya asked, glancing at the boys. Shino said, "Hello Jiraiya. Sama," bowing before the man. While eating some chips, Choji bowed before the man and said, "Hello Jiraiya. Sama. I assume you two completed the rock exercise," Jiraiya said with a smile. "Yes, sir," they both said simultaneously. "Come on in," Jiraiya said, glancing at them as they made their way to a different training area, separate from the one where Naruto was practicing his wind jutsu. "All right, look," Jiraiya said, glancing at the boys. He then performed a series of fast hand seals before saying, "Doden, Doryu Heki no Jutsu." Earth style, earth wall, and an earthen wall materialized in front of him. Jiraiya said, "Here are the hand seals," displaying each one individually. They both said, "Thank you, Jiraiya, Sama," simultaneously. As they made their way to the compound's entrance, Jiraiya grinned and said, "Get your parents to help you." The end of the flashback. After waking up, Naruto began preparing for the day because he knew that he would be in the hospital following each training session with his sensei if the fox wasn't healing him. He began to stretch his body. After all those times he had to dodge the toad, he was now extremely flexible or risk being crippled. After completing the stretching, he began the physical exercise before completing 3 laps around the compound. Jiraiya had to replace the gravity seal on him because he was still having trouble controlling his speed. To give his punches and kicks more force, he began punching and kicking the tree he had been kicking for the previous 4 months. When Jiraiya emerged from his home, he discovered Naruto meditating on the water. He was holding 2 cups of tea and had placed one on a rock for the boy. Naruto stood up, moved over to the rock, and took the tea his sensei had brought him. "Hey, sensei," Naruto said, glancing at the man. Jiraiya grinned and looked at the boy, saying, "You ready for today?" "Yeah, believe it," Naruto chuckled. Jiraiya laughed and said, "Okay, get ready." After setting down the cup from which he was sipping his tea, Jiraiya performed a series of rapid hand seals, causing his hair to cover his body and turn into spikes. To give Naruto time to consider the situation, Jiraiya cancelled the jutsu. Naruto stared at his sensei with his mouth hanging open and stars in his eyes. Naruto looked at the man with a beaming face and said, "You're going to teach it to me?" With a smile on her face, Jiraiya said, "Yeah, that's the last jutsu you're learning before I leave, so you have a month to get the basics down." Naruto observed the man with stars in his eyes and uttered the words, "Awesome." "These hand seals are here," Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy and displaying each one individually. Gazing at the boy, Jiraiya said, "Grow out your hair and concentrate the chakra before you harden it." As he performed the hand seals, Naruto said, "Okay," and then he said, "Ninpo, Harijizu, Ninja Art, Underworld Garden Spike," but nothing occurred. 1 month later. This time, Naruto was meditating, but instead of sensing his surroundings, he found himself in a mansion-like setting with orange walls. He was aware that this was his mindscape. Naruto knew that each time he found himself in his mindscape, the fox needed him for something, so he headed down the corridor toward the gates where the QB was sealed. When Naruto reached the front of the gates, he noticed the fox munching on his large toy, a model of Uchiha Madara. The fox instructed Naruto on how Madara should appear. Naruto looked at the boy and asked, "What is it, QB?" Looking at the boy, the fox yelled, "You should call me QB Sama, you insolent human." Gazing at the fox, Naruto remarked, "In your dreams." "Whatever," the fox said, glancing at the boy, and a scroll that resembled Jiraiya's summoning scroll materialized in front of Naruto. "What is this?" Naruto inquired as he picked up the scroll. With a glance at the boy, the demon lord declared, "It is a summoning scroll for foxes." "Awesome," Naruto uttered as he prepared to unfold the scroll. The fox looked at the boy and said, "No, you have to speak with the head of the toads first before signing it." Naruto opened his eyes to the outside world and said, "Okay." After getting up, Naruto went to the house where Jiraiya lived and knocked on the door. A minute later, Jiraiya opened the door, his eyes barely open, his hair disheveled, and he was shirtless. Naruto gave the man a funny look before the toad sage punched him, sending him flying back. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "What is it? I'm trying to sleep." Naruto glared at the man and yelled, "Sorry, you didn't have to hit me, Sensei." Gazing at the boy, Jiraiya asked, "What do you want?" Naruto looked at his sensei gravely and said, "Okay, I got this summoning contract from the fox and he told me that I had to talk to the head of the toad to see if I can sign it." Jiraiya bit his thumb and asked, "Why didn't you just say that?" After placing the blood in his right palm and performing a few quick hand seals, Jiraiya uttered the words, "Kachiyose no jutsu," summoning jutsu, and two elderly looking toads with irate expressions appeared in front of him. Jiraiya hurriedly shut the door, leaving Naruto and the toad sages outside by themselves. Naruto was growing anxious as he recalled how the old toad had defeated him at that time. Standing next to his wife, Fukasaku yelled, "Jiraiya, get out here." "Yes, sir," Jiraiya said as she opened the door. "Young Jiraiya, why did you call us here?" Shima asked, glancing at the man. Naruto looked at the toad sages and said, "We got a summoning contract from the QB for foxes, and we summoned you here to ask you before signing it." "Why didn't you just say that, Jiraiya?" Fukasaku asked, glancing at the man. Jiraiya looked at the elderly toad sage and said, "I'm sorry, sir." Fukasaku looked at the foxes and said, "It's okay, but don't go giving them all the fun." They both said, "Yes, sir," simultaneously. Shima asked, glancing at them, "Is there anything else?" "No," they both said simultaneously. "Know what?" Fukasaku kicked Jiraiya back inside the house, and Shima kicked Naruto in the face, sending him flying back. "No sir. I mean ma'am," Naruto uttered as he gazed at old Toad. "No, ma'am," Jiraiya said as she stood up. The two toad sages vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving them both massaging their faces. The elderly toads were capable of delivering a powerful kick. "Gaki, this is your fault. I'm going to get you," Jiraiya said, giving the boy a fierce look. "I apologize," Naruto said to his sensei and godfather, "I didn't realize they were that strict." "Now I can't go back to sleep, we might as well get something to eat," Jiraiya said as he went back inside. He returned wearing a shirt and with his hair fixed. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "So today is the day." "Yes, I will become proficient in that jutsu by the time you return," Naruto grinned. The instant ramen was ready when Jiraiya removed 2 cups, filled them with water, placed a piece of paper on each, and then drew the heating seal that Naruto had made on each. They each then applied some chakra to one of the cups. They ate their meals slowly, and when Naruto was done, he got up and went upstairs to shower, while Jiraiya returned home to get ready. When they both returned outside, Jiraiya had everything he needed, so he was prepared to leave, while Naruto was already an hour late for school, but he continued. In a mansion like setting with orange walls, Jiraiya performed some hand seals while Naruto closed his eyes. Naruto led Jiraiya to the gates where the demon lord resides, and they both noticed the scroll on the floor. Kyubi looked at them and asked, "What happened?" He had already fallen asleep when the toad sages arrived. Naruto looked at the fox and laughed, saying, "They said okay. But how are we supposed to sign it in my mind?" Naruto asked, glancing at the enormous head before him. When Kyuubi said, "I will summon the scroll in the outside world," his chakra abruptly encircled Naruto, and Jiraiya found himself outside with Naruto in front of him and two chakra tails behind him. Since they were closest to Naruto, the Hyuga next door felt the demonic chakra, but not many others did because there wasn't much chakra being used. Due to Naruto's inexperience with the chakra, Kyuubi was already in control with just two tails. He performed a quick hand seal before saying, "Kachiyose no jutsu," summoning jutsu, at which point the scroll appeared on the ground and the chakra was already gone. With his Byakugan in hand, Heishi looked around and asked, "Where did this foul chakra come from?" The branch member in front of him said, "It's gone." The clan leader thought, that felt like some of Kyuubi's chakra. The fox contract had no name, in contrast to the toad contract, so Naruto picked it up and opened it. As with the toad contract, Naruto signed it after writing his name on it and biting his thumb, causing blood to flow. Before writing his name and signing the contract, Jiraiya did the same thing, biting his thumb to extract blood. The fox sent the hand seals to Naruto's mind, and they knew they were the hand seals to the jutsu, but the thing vanished as soon as they had signed the contract. Naruto said, "Here are the hand seals, Sensei," displaying each one to the man one at a time. The seasoned sage looked at his pupil and said, "Naruto, you know you can't summon any big foxes in the village, so you can only summon some the size of Gamakichi through Gamakino." "All right, Sensei," Naruto said, glancing at the youngster. As he headed for the exit with Naruto at his heels, Jiraiya said, "I'll see you later. When you master the guardian spikes, send me a message with a messenger toad or kitsune." Naruto looked at his godfather and said, "Okay, where are you going now?" Jiraiya looked at the now crying young child and said, "I'll go now." "I have to go to the academy," Naruto sobbed. Jiraiya grinned and put his hand on the boy's spiky yellow hair, which had become even more untidy since he began training for the guardian spikes. "I'll be back before you know it," he said. To make their departure easier, Jiraiya vanished in a puff of smoke. "All right, bye for now, hurry and get to the academy before you are late," he said. Naruto immediately put his happy mask back on and walked, but it wasn't entirely a mask because he was now truly enjoying his life. With a broad smile on his face, Naruto arrived at the classroom at least an hour late. The children all burst out laughing, anticipating that Iruka would lash out at the boy with the spiky hair. 5 months have passed since he entered the academy as an actual person rather than a clone. The only change to his appearance was that his hair had grown to his shoulders. "Where have you been, Naruto?" Iruka inquired, glancing at the boy. "I was lost on my way here," Naruto remarked, grinning at the man. When Iruka heard everyone in the class laughing, he yelled, "Stop lying, Naruto." "No, I'm telling the truth," Naruto said, grinning at the man. Iruka looked at him and yelled, "Go to your seat." After climbing the stairs to his seat, Naruto saw Sakura sticking her leg out in an attempt to trip the boy for a few quick giggles. He pretended not to see her by kicking the leg, which nearly broke from the force of the kick. When Sakura felt her leg and believed it was broken, she let out a loud, agonizing scream. She attempted to get up and run in the direction of the boy, but she was unable to bear the pain and sat back down. "Naruto, what was that for?" Iruka asked, glancing at the boy, but he could have broken the girl's leg because he saw Sakura attempting to trip him first. Naruto sat down and said, "I wasn't looking, but what was her leg doing in my way?" "That's true," Iruka remarked, glancing at the boy. Sakura angrily looked at Iruka and yelled, "You're not going to do anything to him." Iruka turned around and said, "You did provoke him." Sakura shouted to the teacher, "So what? Stand by the wall, Sakura," Iruka yelled, glancing at the girl as she stood up and approached the wall as everyone laughed at her. The two boys were at the bottom of the class, Naruto the dead last and Shikamaru before him. Naruto put his head down and fell asleep, with Shikamaru sleeping next to him. Shikamaru and Naruto performed mediocrely. They received the bare minimum to pass on all subjects without receiving any extra credit. Naruto was still not book smart, but only because he never made the effort to read a book he enjoyed in order to see or hear things that could teach him. Sasuke continued to lead the class, with Hinata just behind him as the academy's top kunoichi, Ino in second place, and Sakura in third. Sasuke continued to train daily after learning the leaf exercise. Since the root member never returned, he simply learned more fire jutsus and worked to become proficient in them. Since Naruto was an academy student like him, he had one thought. Defeating Naruto would bring him one step closer to defeating his brother. He was still unsure of the reason behind this thought. The final Uchiha of the village has been experiencing nightmares and visions ever since that awful night, and he was experiencing the same awful vision in class at the moment when his parents and his family perished. Memory lapse. That evening. A pitch black sky loomed over the world like a suffocating blanket, and the night was silent. There was no sound. The only source of light that night was the full moon hanging over the sky. There was no sound. Anyone out that night would have been uncomfortable. Everyone would have fled home if they had been out on the streets. And it was the sort of night that would raise the hair on your neck. There was silence that evening. Anyone on the streets would have noticed a figure silhouetted by the full moon on one of the electrical poles if they had looked up. Perched crouching atop the pole was the figure. Someone could have seen what some people believed to be two red lights if they had stood in the exact right spot. That terrifying night was one of silence. Abruptly, the figure vanished. A muffled scream shattered the silence, then there was quiet. Then a noise was heard. The sound of a small, bewildered boy gasping in shock at the death that had surrounded him. The boy sprinted in search of a living person, searching for a friendly face, a Euro, anyone. The only faces that were friendly had died. The boy continued to run, in search of someone. He hurried home, praying that no one was left behind. As soon as he entered the room, his hopes vanished. His parents were on the floor, both dead. The boy gave them a startled look. He was even more shocked when a figure emerged from the darkness. Itachi.ne. Sana Euro? Why? End of flashback. The young Uchiha's anger was growing, and all he wanted to do was kill his brother in order to get his mind straight and exact revenge on him for his family. He just wanted to scream and cry right now. Since he was not learning any ninjutsu at the academy, he found the class to be rather dull and searched for something to do. Time was passing slowly, and the class was growing more dull by the moment. Naruto, on the other hand, was extremely bored and needed something to do immediately to avoid going crazy. Iruka wasn't looking at Shikamaru at the moment, so he was already asleep, but every time Naruto tried to fall asleep, Iruka would wake him up. Iruka put the book down and stated, "Today in class, we will practice taijutsu and then we will practice our throwing accuracy." "Woo!" exclaimed Kiba as Akamaru, who was on his head, gave him a bark before rising. Finally, Naruto uttered as he approached the door. With a frown on his face, Iruka said, "Naruto, Kiba, Shikamaru, and Choji, you have no funny business today or you are all in trouble." They all said, "Yes, sir," while simultaneously glancing at the man's smile. The entire class went outside to stretch their bodies in preparation for their taijutsu practice, and Mizuki waited for them to be ready so he could begin the lesson. Since he was unfamiliar with the academy style, Naruto had no real intention of taking part in the taijutsu practice. Instead, he leapt on a tree and promptly fell asleep. Shikamaru reflected on how fortunate he was to escape before having to practice with the class as everyone began to practice their taijutsu, but Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Iruka gave them a brief respite after they had practiced the academies and their own taijutsu styles for an hour before they were required to begin honing their accuracy. Knowing the boys would come for dinner, Naruto went to the academy's roof and sat down to wait for them. Shikamaru was in the front with a bored expression. About 2 minutes later, he always had that expression. "Hey guys," Naruto chuckled as he observed them. Gazing at the boy, Kiba questioned, "Where the hell were you?" Naruto looked at the boy and laughed, sleeping on top of the tree. 1 year later, the day of graduation. With a broad smile on his face, Naruto arrived at the academy on the day he would formally become a ninja and become the cool shinobi Jiraiya had described to him in the stories. Nothing could take away his happiness. In fact, he was so eager for the day to come that he was unable to sleep the night before. When he entered the classroom and realized that everyone was already there, he went to the back and sat down in his usual chair. Although Sasuke and Naruto were not friends, they did get along better now. Since their last altercation in the academy, Sasuke had stopped trying to fight the yellow-headed boy whenever he could. A flashback to 3 months ago. All of the students were present when Naruto entered the classroom, but Iruka and Mizuki were not there because they were in a meeting with the Hokage. Naruto moved to the rear of the class and took his customary seat next to Shikamaru, who was already sound asleep. Naruto looked up to see the lone sole survivor of the Uchiha massacre standing in front of him as Sasuke rose from his seat and strode toward the yellow-headed boy with all of his fangirls behind him, which infuriated him. Sasuke looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, fight me." "Why?" inquired Naruto as he stood up. Sakura said with heart in her eyes. Sasuke-kun doesn't need to explain his reasons to you. He's fighting for my honor. Shut up, Banshee. I don't think I was speaking to you, Naruto said, merely glancing at the girl. Sakura shouted, shut up Baka, while glaring at the boy. The Uchiha looked at the boy and said, Naruto, I want to fight you to see how strong you really are. The instructors are not around, so we can go all out. Good enough, Naruto remarked, glancing at the boy. Naruto asked, glancing at the Uchiha boy, any rules? Sasuke looked at him and said, ninjutsu and taijutsu only, no weapons or any other hidden skills. He had a suspicion that Naruto had called forth all of the toads that day. All right, let's go, Naruto said as he walked toward the window and leapt out, the children trailing behind him. Shikamaru, the match's referee, stood in the center, while Naruto and Sasuke stood opposite each other outside. Are you ready, Naruto? Shikamaru asked, glancing at the boy with the yellow hair. Naruto said, hi, adopting the fox stance. Are you ready, Sasuke? Shikamaru asked, glancing at the boy. The boy simply said, HN, as he assumed the fighting stance of the academy. Shikamaru jumped away from them and said, okay go. Sasuke and Naruto were staring at each other, waiting for one of them to initiate contact. Naruto, fed up with waiting, chose to initiate contact. His opponent, who had raven hair, was in front of him when he charged. Naruto clenched his fist, pulled it back, and hurled it in the direction of Sasuke's pallid face. When the fist strikes, Sasuke skids backwards a little. Sasuke reappears with his own fist. Naruto sideways shifts just enough to avoid the fist. Sasuke blocks Naruto's attempt to strike the Uchiha in the chin with his elbow by catching it with his other hand and pushing him away. Naruto whirls around in an attempt to strike Sasuke's face with another fist. Naruto barely scrapes his cheek when Sasuke makes a slight movement. Sasuke swiftly retaliated, landing the blow squarely in Naruto's abdomen. He connected another blow after charging his other fist with chakra after landing the first one, winding him just a little bit this time. Naruto coughed and jumped back, then ran back toward him while dodging another blow. Sasuke leapt over his outstretched leg as the yellow-headed boy swept beneath it. Sasuke was sent flying backwards when Naruto struck his chin with a fist covered in chakra as he was descending. Returning to his taijutsu stance, Naruto held up his hand, urging the Uchiha to give it another go. Sasuke got up and cleaned himself up. The fangirls yelled, Sasuke-kun. Should we take this to the next level? The Uchiha asked, performing a few quick hand seals before whispering, Kaden, Gukaku no Jutsu. Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu. Then, using a lot of chakra, he exhaled a large fireball from his mouth that was intended for the yellow-headed boy. When Naruto realized the danger, he jumped back a few yards to avoid the fireball and began performing his own hand seals. He gathered a lot of chakra in his mouth and chest, saying to himself, Kaden, Enden. Fire style. Fireball, and a large jet of fire shot out of his mouth, colliding with the grand fireball. The two fireballs battle for dominance until they both subsided. Naruto vanished and then resurfaced in front of the Uchiha Avenger with his fist balled up. He threw a strong punch at the raven-haired boy, hitting him in the stomach and sending him reeling backward. However, before he could hit the ground, he flipped back and landed on his feet before being struck down by the yellow-haired boy who had suddenly materialized behind him. Sakura sobbed as she saw the boy on the ground and said, Sasuke-kun. With some blood in the corner of his mouth, Sasuke stood up and brushed himself clean once more. He glared at the yellow-haired boy across from him. Naruto vanished in an instant and then reappeared in front of the boy with the raven hair, but this time the Uchiha was prepared for the attack. Naruto kicked the raven-haired Uchiha in the head, but Sasuke dodged and swept beneath Naruto's legs, causing the boy to leap into the air. The Uchiha Avenger performed a few quick hand seals before saying to himself, Kaden. Karyu Enden. Fire style. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet, and he released a medium ball of fire in the shape of a dragon from his mouth. Kawarimi no Jutsu. Replacement Jutsu, declared Naruto without hand seals, and he replaced himself with a log that was completely burned. Since the fire dragon was supposed to be larger than this, Sasuke was aware that it was still unperfected and that he needed to learn the just you. Sasuke looked at the boy who had just emerged from behind the tree and thought, my Sharingan could not copy any of his jutsus. Naruto said, you got better, Teme, grinning at the boy. As Sasuke returned to his clan's taijutsu stance, he said, you too Dobi. Although he was an elite Uchiha, Sasuke knew he could not keep up with Naruto in a taijutsu battle because the boy was much faster than him. He pushed this knowledge to the back of his mind because he did not want to consider it. The yellow-haired boy assumed the fox stance and ran toward the boy at a rather slow pace, knowing that the Uchiha Avenger had to finish the fight in the next 2 moves because he was running out of chakra. Sasuke was about to attack him from the front, but as soon as Naruto got in front of him, the boy went down like an animal and vanished. His Sharingan was unable to follow the boy, and he was unsure of why because his Dojutsu was in effect. Sasuke instantly turned around when Naruto reappeared behind the raven-haired boy on all fours, but the yellow-haired boy caught him with a strong punch to the stomach, sending him skidding back. Shikamaru stepped between them and declared, "I'm going to have to stop the match." "What?" Kiba exclaimed, glancing at the slothful genius. "You heard me," Shikamaru said, turning to face the untamed-looking boy, Iruka. "Sensei will be back any minute now." Naruto approached the boy with the raven hair who was lying on the ground and extended his hand for him to accept. Looking at the boy with the raven hair on the ground, Sasuke yelled, "Sasuke-kun don't need your help. Right Sasuke-kun." Sasuke took Naruto's hand and stood up, saying, "HN." Sakura said, glancing at the boy, "Sasuke-kun." Sasuke looked at the girl and said, "Don't you know when to shut up?" Naruto laughed and remarked, "You know, you're not that bad. I was thinking the same thing." The end of the flashback. With a broad smile on his face, Naruto arrived at the academy on the day he would formally become a ninja and become the cool shinobi Jiraiya had described to him in the stories. Nothing could take away his happiness. In fact, he was so eager for the day to come that he was unable to sleep the night before. When he entered the classroom and realized that everyone was already there, he went to the back and sat down in his usual chair. Although Sasuke and Naruto were not friends, they did get along better now. Since their last altercation in the academy, Sasuke had stopped trying to fight the yellow-headed boy whenever he got the chance. Even though fire jutsus wasn't Naruto's weakness, Sasuke still trained to outdo the boy despite his newfound respect for his strength. Sakura and Naruto never got along. Although she didn't express it, she became enraged whenever Naruto made a flirtatious remark to any of the other girls in the class, particularly Hinata. She was upset that she was no longer receiving his attention, but she was still arguing over who she preferred. She was in love with Sasuke, but she was also starting to feel something for Naruto. Sakura scowled before turning to face Sasuke with a heart in her eyes as Naruto rose from his chair and approached the Hyuga princess grinning. Naruto said, "Hey Hinata," grinning at the girl. "Hello Naruto-kun," Hinata said, blushing as she looked at the boy. Naruto looked at the girl and asked, "What are you up to?" "Nothing. What about you?" Hinata asked, blushing at the prospect of speaking with the boy in depth. "Nothing. I wanted to ask you a question," Naruto said, grinning as he turned to face the girl. With her fingers crossed, Hinata hurriedly asked, "What is it, Naruto-kun?" Hinata looked at the boy and thought, "Please ask me out." Naruto asked, glancing at the girl and giggling, "What is your last name?" "What?" Hinata asked, glancing at the boy. Hyuga," Hinata said, glancing at the boy with a hint of disappointment as she hadn't anticipated that question. Naruto looked at the princess and laughed, saying, "So you are from the Hyuga clan? Isn't that the clan where all of them act like they have sticks up their asses and they act all superior and stuff?" "Naruto-kun," the girl said, staring at him with embarrassment. When Naruto saw the girl's face, she paused and said, "You don't seem like a Hyuga." "What do you mean?" Hinata asked, observing the boy's growing uneasiness. Hinata looked anxiously at the boy and thought, "Oh no, he thinks I'm a failure too." Naruto looked at the girl and grinned, saying, "I mean, most of the other Hyugas are stuck-up bastards. And you're different because you are actually nice." A flush came over Hinata's face, and she quickly looked away, praying Naruto wouldn't notice. Naruto, unfortunately for her, did. What on earth is causing her to blush? I just gave her a compliment. She acts as though she has never heard one before. Naruto looked at the girl in genuine confusion and thought, perhaps she's just got a fever or something. With his hand on her forehead, Naruto asked, "Hinata, do you have a fever?" in an attempt to gauge her temperature. Hinata looked at the boy and said, I'm fine, Naruto-kun. "Are you sure?" inquired Naruto, taking his hand away. With Mizuki at his heels, Iruka entered the classroom holding a clipboard and grinning as he turned to face the students. The fact that his students would become genins made him both happy and a little sad. Iruka looked at them and said, "Good morning to all of you." "Good morning, Iruka." "Sensei," the entire class said collectively. Iruka looked at them and said, "Today is the day that everyone who passes the exam graduates," to which they all began to cheer. Since it was the last day of the academy, Naruto is unsure if he should demonstrate his abilities or pass the genin exam with a minimum score. He wanted to show Iruka how strong he had become over the year, but Jiraiya advised him to pass with the bare minimum so that people would underestimate him and give him an advantage in fights. Iruka walked out of the classroom and into the adjacent room, saying, "Okay class, please come in the room once your name is called to take the graduation exam." Every child entered the room when their name was called, and they all smiled as they emerged with their headband after completing the tasks required of them. Iruka said, "Uzumaki Naruto," and Naruto stood up, grinning, and walked to the room. "Perform the replacement jutsu, please," Iruka said, grinning at the boy. As he appeared next to Iruka grinning, Naruto said, "Kawarimi no jutsu." Replacement jutsu, without performing any hand seals. He then replaced himself with a cup that was on Iruka's desk. When Mizuki realized that Naruto could pass the test, he began to feel anxious because his plan was not working out. When Iruka asked Naruto to use the transformation jutsu, Naruto returned to the spot where he had been standing to take the test and, grinning, turned into an exact replica of Iruka. Naruto knew that he could perform the clone jutsu while he slept, and that it was the final thing he needed to do to pass the test. In order to demonstrate his abilities, Naruto uses the shadow clone rather than the normal clone when performing the clone jutsu. He knew that Mizuki was up to something when he failed him, so Mizuki chose to let him down because he didn't use the standard clone jutsu. He wanted to kill Mizuki immediately, but he was unable to do so for fear of conflict with the Hokage. Iruka was furious that Mizuki had let Naruto down, but he wanted to express it since he didn't want to show preference among the pupils. Naruto left through the window, not wanting anyone to know that he failed the test, so he did not return to the classroom. Naruto was sitting on top of the fort's head on the mountain after class, grinning sadly, knowing that Jiraiya would return today and discover that Mizuki was the reason he failed the test. Given that he failed the test, he knew that the other parents would not be able to see Jiraiya pick him up from school. After learning to detect people's approaches, Naruto then sensed Mizuki's chakra approaching his location. Naruto asked, "What do you want, Mizuki?" "Sensei?" Before the man could come. "How did he know I was coming?" Mizuki asked, glancing at the boy. Mizuki pretended to smile as she said, "Hey Naruto-san, you know I didn't mean to fail you, but you did not perform the right jutsu." Naruto said, "It's okay," without even glancing at the man. Mizuki grinned as he looked at the boy and said, "Okay, I'll make it up to you. There is another way that you can pass the exam." As he chewed on his large Madara toy, the Demon Lord remarked, "Something is wrong with him, Kit." "Yeah, I see," Naruto said to the mental demon. Naruto looked at the man and said, "Okay, how'd I pass the exam?" Mizuki gave Naruto the precise address where they were to meet, saying, "Easy, all you need to do is take the scroll of sealing and meet me in the forest." Naruto said, "Okay, Mizuki." Sensei, as he turned to leave the man. Since he didn't want anyone to know that he was back in the village, Jiraiya was disguised in front of the academy. He searched everywhere but couldn't find the yellow-headed boy, so he knew something was wrong. He closed his eyes and swiftly located the boy at the ramen stand. He vanished in a whirlpool of leaves and ended up where the boy was eating. "What's up, Naruto?" Jiraiya asked, placing his hand on the boy's shoulder. Naruto hurriedly stood up and gave the man a hug after saying, "Sensei." With a glance at the boy, Jiraiya questioned, "What happened? Why were you not in the academy?" Naruto scowled as he released the man, saying, "It's because I didn't pass the exam." "How?" Jiraiya asked, glancing at him. With a serious expression on his face, Naruto said, "I can't tell you about it here." After performing a few hand seals, Jiraiya placed a hand on the boy's head and instantly entered the yellow-headed boy's mindscape. "This is Naruto's mindscape. So what happened?" Jiraiya inquired, glancing at the boy. With some sadness in his eyes, Naruto looked at his sensei and said, "I did everything that Mizuki told me to pass the test, but he still decided to fail me because I used the shadow clone instead of the regular clone. He chose to place the blame on himself because he would have passed the test if he hadn't been showing off." With a hand on the boy's shoulder, Jiraiya questioned, "Then what happened?" Naruto began narrating the tale to his sensei, saying, "I was sitting on the top of the Hokage monument." Rewind. Naruto asked, "What do you want, Mizuki? Sensei," before the man could come. Mizuki pretended to smile as she said, "Hey Naruto-san, you know I didn't mean to fail you, but you did not perform the right jutsu." Naruto said, "It's okay," without even glancing at the man. Mizuki grinned as he looked at the boy and said, "Okay, I'll make it up to you. There is another way that you can pass the exam." As he chewed on his large Madara toy, the Demon Lord remarked, "Something is wrong with him, Kit." "Yeah, I see," Naruto said to the mental demon. Naruto looked at the man and said, "Okay, how'd I pass the exam?" Mizuki gave Naruto the precise address where they were to meet, saying, "Easy, all you need to do is take the scroll of sealing and meet me in the forest." Naruto said, "Okay, Mizuki. Sensei," as he turned to leave the man. The end of the flashback. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Oh, he's planning to betray the village." "What?" shouted Naruto, still in his reverie. Jiraiya looked at the boy gravely and said, "The scroll of sealing contains a lot of the village's secrets and a lot of jutsu that is forbidden because of the things required to perform them." Naruto looked at the man with a serious expression on his face and asked, "So why does he want it?" Gazing at the boy, Jiraiya remarked, "I told you already that he's planning to betray the village." Naruto looked at the man and said, "So what do I do?" Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "You have to take the scroll to lure him to the location so that we can catch him." "Okay," Naruto said, grinning at the man. Returning to the real world. Jiraiya and Naruto both woke up, and before his first official mission, the yellow-headed boy promptly ordered a couple bowls of ramen to eat. Jiraiya grinned as he watched the boy devour all those bowls of ramen as if there were no tomorrow, remembering how Minato used to eat after a mission. After everything the council had done to prevent him from taking the boy, Jiraiya was genuinely proud of him and happy that he had come that night to find him. The council was unaware that the boy was in the village. He would ensure that Mizuki pays for attempting to deceive the boy, so they would finally know he was in the village tonight. Jiraiya looked at the boy and asked, "Naruto, did you master the Underworld Guardian Spikes?" "Yes, it was the most difficult jutsu you taught me, and it took me roughly 4 months to become proficient," Naruto said, grinning at the man. With an evil glee in his eyes, Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "That's not the hardest jutsu that you'll learn." With a nervous expression on his face, Naruto thought, "Shish. T." Later on in the evening. This was both a test for Naruto and a mission from his sensei, so he prepared everything and was prepared to go. In the same night that he would test his cunning and apprehend a criminal, he would run in that direction, being careful to suppress his chakra. Naruto knew where the scroll was because he had previously cleaned the Hokage Tower as a form of punishment, so he slipped past the first guard and ascended the stairs. Naruto had an idea while the two guards were so focused on their work in front of the door and he was unsure of how to enter the office. With a smile on his face, Naruto stepped outside and faced the two guards. The first guard, brandishing a kunai, said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Naruto said, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu," and made 5 clones in addition to himself. The other guard looked at the boy and asked, "What do you think you are doing?" In front of the guards, Oroku no Jutsu, Sexy Jutsu, and all 5 clones transformed into 5 stunning, nude young women. With a seductive smile on their faces, the 5 nude women approached the guards. They touched their faces and both of them collapsed to the ground, blood streaming from their noses. When he heard the commotion, the Hokage emerged and saw the 5 nude women. He collapsed back into his office, blood streaming from his nose. After sneaking into the hidden vault room, Naruto grabbed the large scroll that was in the center of the space and fled into the forest while carrying the scroll. In an attempt to make Mizuki an example, Jiraiya was already preparing to confront the traitor in the forest and make him pay for his misdeeds. When Naruto got there, he opened the scroll to see what was inside. He already knew that the Shadow Clone Jutsu was the first jutsu on the scroll. As he walked down, he noticed a jutsu that was connected to the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Before moving on to the next one, he read the hand seals and the instructions. He proceeded to the next jutsu after reading the instructions for the previous one. Before closing the scroll, Naruto read the instructions to 5 more jutsus. After finishing reading the instructions to the jutsus that piqued his interest, Naruto waited for Mizuki to arrive so Jiraiya could apprehend the man. The Hokage had to capture Naruto before anything else happened because he was examining everything through a crystal ball. The Hokage addressed the 2 masked men in front of him, saying, "Call every shinobi that is available, and bring Naruto to me." "What happened?" one of the shinobis in attendance inquired. Sarutobi looked at the man and remarked, Naruto took the forbidden scroll. Someone in the crowd in front of the elderly cage said, "He must be put to death." Another one yelled, "He's done enough." As he walked back to his office, Sarutobi said, "Just bring Naruto here and don't harm him." Following their departure, the shinobis searched the entire village for the boy, searching every nook and cranny. After seeing Naruto reading the forbidden scroll in his crystal ball, Sarutobi turned to see Mizuki making his way to the spot where the yellow-headed boy was. The Hokage chose to continue examining the situation after Mizuki informed Iruka of what the Hokage had said earlier, and Iruka had already left for the scene. One Chunin who was reporting to the Hokage said, "We can't find the boy." From the room, the Hokage exclaimed, "I found him." When Iruka arrived at Naruto's location, he noticed the boy grinning broadly as he read the scroll on the ground. Iruka, who was standing behind the boy, asked, "Naruto, what are you doing with the forbidden scroll?" Naruto grinned and scratched the back of his head, saying, "Hey Iruka. Sensei, what's going on?" Iruka said, looking irate, "What are you doing with the scroll, Naruto?" Naruto said gravely, "Mizuki. Sensei told me that if I could get the scroll and bring it here, I would pass the exam." Iruka had a question. Why Mizuki appeared right after telling Naruto that. Mizuki landed behind the academy instructor and said, "Hey, Iruka, it looks like you arrived before me." Iruka said, somewhat perplexed, "That's not part of no test, why did you ask Naruto to do it?" "Because," Mizuki said, glaring at the man with a malicious glee in his eyes, "I'm going to take the scroll and leave this pathetic village." "Why Naruto then Mizuki?" Iruka asked, glancing at the man who was growing angrier by the second. Mizuki looked at the man with a twisted smile on his face and said, "Because they would just blame everything on him, even you would." Naruto looked at his sensei and asked, "Is that true, Iruka? Sensei?" Iruka looked at the boy and said, "No, Naruto, that's not true that Mizuki is lying, give me the scroll." Mizuki looked at the boy with a twisted smile on his face and said, "No, Naruto, Iruka is lying and he's trying to trick you to get the scroll from you. Iruka always hated the demon because he killed your parents." Looking at the boy with tears in his eyes, Iruka begged, "Mizuki, stop. It's an S-class secret." Mizuki smiled and said, "What that he has the nine-tailed fox sealed inside him?" "I already know that," Naruto said, startling the two Chunins. "Give me the scroll," Mizuki said, glancing at the boy, "because you know then that everything is going to be blamed on you no matter what." Naruto looked at the man and said, "I don't think so." Mizuki untied one of the enormous shuriken on his back and said, "Your choice." Naruto was preparing to dodge the incoming projectiles when Iruka leapt in front of him, taking the giant shuriken to the back, and Mizuki threw the weapon with deadly accuracy, aiming for the yellow-headed boy's heart. After glancing at the man grinning in front of him with a look of pure sadness, Naruto turned to face Mizuki with a look of pure rage. Mizuki flashed another of his twisted smiles at Naruto. Mizuki removed another enormous shuriken and remarked, "How sweet, now it's your turn." Naruto looked at the man and said, "I'm going to kill you." With a look of utter rage on his face and a deeper voice, Naruto said, "I'm going to show you what a demon." Fuzzy.kun, give me some of your chakra, Naruto said to the demon. In the boy's mind, the demon lord screamed, "Who the hell are you calling crazy, you prick, you're human." The yellow-headed boy began to leak chakra after the demon lord let some out through his prison's gates. Mizuki watched in utter horror as Naruto went to his knees, one tail swinging behind him and chakra encircling his entire body. The third watched with concern in his eyes. Even as Naruto was being beaten to near death, he had never witnessed him act in such a manner. When Sarutobi peered into the crystal, he saw a figure hiding and observing the current events while wearing a white coat and an Anbu mask. Everyone in the village was terrified that the nine-tailed fox was out to get them again after they sensed the chakra emanating from the yellow-headed boy. In an attempt to find out what was happening, Jiraiya's body darted to the boy's location. As soon as he arrived, he recognized the man wearing the mask and white coat and knew where he was from. Mizuki produced the final large shuriken strapped to his back and hurled it in the direction of the boy. Naruto performed a few quick hand seals before he uttered the words, "Kaden, Enden, Fire Style, Fireball," and ejected a jet of fire from his mouth. The shuriken remained in the fire, heating up, and the kunai became blazing hot before the chakra's tail grabbed it and hurled it back at the former academy instructor. After feeling the powerful demonic chakra, Mizuki attempted to avoid the heated shuriken, but it was moving too quickly and struck the academy instructor in the shoulder. Mizuki screamed so loudly that everyone in the village could hear him, and all of the active ninjas in the village began to move toward the Hokage tower. While the chakra was fading from the yellow-headed boy, Mizuki's arm was severed from his shoulder, causing him to collapse on his knees and scream. Jiraiya said, "Naruto, don't kill him," without turning to face the boy. As the chakra left his body, Naruto grinned and looked at Mizuki. "Sure thing," he said. "Come out," Jiraiya said, glancing toward the concealed Anbu. "Shit," the man thought, glancing toward the legendary Sannin. Jiraiya grinned at the Anbu member as he emerged from his hiding place and faced the Toad Sage before he cracked his knuckles. Jiraiya looked at the man in front of him and said, "You actually stepped out to face me." "Why not?" the man asked, glancing at the white-haired man. He was taught to be emotionless, but he knew deep down that he wouldn't succeed. Jiraiya looked at the man and said, "Because I'm not in a good mood right now, and I'm not showing any mercy." "Really?" the man in the mask said, glancing at the sage. With his Anbu katana in hand, the masked man charged at the legendary ninja, swung it at Jiraiya's head, but Jiraiya grabbed the hand and used the katana to break the wrist. Jiraiya looked at the man before realizing that he needed some information from the masked man, who did not scream because he knew that his life was ending. While he was still holding the broken wrists, he punched the masked man in the gut. The force of the blow caused the man's body to shift back, but his hand remained in the same place, causing his mask to come off. As directed by the Hokage, two Anbus descended behind Jiraiya and picked up the man after she struck him in the back of the head, causing the now unmasked man to collapse on the ground, unconscious. The academy instructor was on the ground with a wound on his back when medics descended from the tree and began tending to him. Jiraiya approached Mizuki, grabbed the former academy teacher who had turned traitor by the neck, and walked with him toward the Hokage tower, where all of the shinobis were waiting for the old Hokage to speak. Mizuki was still yelling because the hot kunai was hurting him, and he knew that things would get worse. Jiraiya's expression still promised a world of pain, and as he and Mizuki moved through the crowd, the shinobis could not help but be terrified as they sensed the legendary ninja's intense killing intent. When Jiraiya reached the front of the shinobi group on the front of the Hokage tower, he grabbed the yelling Chunin by the neck and stood across from them all. Gazing deathly at the quivering Chunin, Jiraiya questioned, "Who told you about the Forbidden Scroll?" Jiraiya was holding Mizuki's neck tightly, so he was able to say, "I'll never tell you," through every breath. "I'm not going to ask you again. Who told you about it? And why Naruto?" Jiraiya said, becoming more composed. Mizuki looked at the Toad Sage and laughed, because the demon brat deserves to die. As everyone was growing quieter by the moment, Jiraiya looked at the man and said, "That was your last chance. You were going to go in jail for treason, but you broke a law by calling the boy the demon brat." Jiraiya raised his voice so that everyone could hear him say, "Your punishment is death, and do you think Orochimaru Teme would let you live after giving him the scroll?" Jiraiya threw the screaming Chunin into the air and said, "This is an example to all of you who want to abuse the boy." Without using a hand seal, he said, "Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Fire style, Grand Fireball Jutsu," and a giant ball of fire engulfed the Chunin's body, turning it into ashes as it remained in the air for a few seconds. With the exception of the Hokage and the two guards, nobody knew the Toad Sage had returned to the village, so they all stared at him in terror. Then, with a smile on his face, Jiraiya approached the Hokage. When he was close enough to the elderly Hokage, he approached his ear before uttering. Before leaving the man, Jiraiya muttered, "We got to talk, Sensei." Iruka was in the hospital after receiving treatment for his wounds because they would not let him go, even after he claimed to be okay and could go home by himself. Everyone in the hospital hallway was staring at Naruto in terror, and he did not like the way they looked at him at all. When Naruto entered Iruka's room and saw the hospitalized Chunin with bandages covering his body, he stood there staring at him for a few seconds before remaining silent. When Iruka finally noticed the boy in the room, he called for Naruto to approach the bed. Naruto asked, grinning as he looked at the man, "How are you holding up, Iruka Sensei?" Iruka smiled as he looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, I'm doing better, thank you." Iruka smiled as he looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, close your eyes for a moment and turn around." In accordance with his sensei's instructions, Naruto closed his eyes and turned around, facing Iruka. When Iruka approached his bed, he picked up his hite and sat up to place it on the boy's forehead. Iruka smiled and held a mirror in his hands as he said, "Open them now." Iruka told the boy in front of him, "Congratulations, Naruto. you are now a genin of Konoha. When Naruto saw the hite across his forehead in the mirror that Iruka was holding up, he was unsure of how to respond. Although he knew that not everyone in the hospital liked him and that this was a hospital for Kami's benefit, he still felt the urge to leap all over the place to show everyone what he had just received from his academy instructor. The next thing he thought of was to jump on the bed and give the man a big smile while embracing him. Iruka smiled and gave the boy a hug in return. The yellow-haired boy then leapt from the bed, eager to get home and show his sensei what Iruka had just given him. Since Jiraiya was not present, Naruto entered the compound alone. Since he was unsure of Jiraiya's current location, he chose to celebrate his promotion by going out for ramen. Knowing that he would soon be a cool ninja like his sensei occasionally is what made Naruto smile as he walked down the street. Now that they were aware of the consequences for hurting the boy or disparaging his circumstances, everyone began to move away from him as he was strolling down the street. Finally, Naruto arrived at the ramen stand in the village, which was manned by two of his most valued friends. Tucci grinned as he looked at the yellow-haired boy and said, "Naruto, good to see you." Naruto sat down and grinned, asking, "Old man, how is business around here?" "Good now that you're here," Tucci said, grinning as he looked at the boy. Alongside Jiraiya. Sitting thoughtfully on the Hokage's desk, Jiraiya was aware that a major event was approaching the village based on his information. His spy on Orochimaru had informed him that the Sannin had established his own ninja village and had been going back and forth between Kusagakure and Sanagakure. Although he was aware that nothing positive would come of it, he did not fully understand why the former Konoha nin had founded his own hidden village and was attempting to form alliances with other hidden villages. He was also dealing with the problem of Uchiha Madara at the moment, and he was aware that the legendary Uchiha was about to do something significant. With a determined expression on his face, Sarutobi said, "Jiraiya, before you say anything, I decided to retire and make you the Godem Hokage." When Jiraiya backed up toward the office door, she discovered that it was sealed. "I didn't accept the position 13 years ago, what makes you think I'm going to take it now?" she asked. As he stood up behind his desk, Sarutobi responded, "Because you have no choice now." Jiraiya looked anxiously at the elderly man and asked, "Is there anything I can say to change your mind?" Sarutobi looked at the man and said, "No, my decision will be made public at the Chunin exam, which is taking place in 6 months." Jiraiya looked at his former teacher and said, "I wanted to talk to you about Oro, Teme." "How about him?" Sarutobi inquired, becoming somewhat quieter. Gazing at the village's Hokage, Jiraiya remarked, "My sources tell me that he's trying to start his own hidden village and that he's been going to Sanagakure and Kusagakure quite a bit lately. Did you learn anything more about the village?" Sarutobi asked, glancing at his pupil, the Hidden Leaf Village spymaster. Jiraiya rubbed his chin wearily and said, "No, there isn't any actual information about the village at the moment, not even the name of the village is known yet." Jiraiya walked toward the window and said, "Okay, then let me go home, Naruto is probably looking for me." As Jiraiya leapt out of the window, Sarutobi yelled, "Are you ever going to leave through the door?" Jiraiya yelled back to the elderly man, laughing, "Hell no, old man." Even though Jiraiya was jumping from roof to roof, he knew exactly where to look for his god. Sona Yuro. Tucci's ramen stand. He jumped from roof to roof for several minutes before landing in front of the ramen stand. The yellow-headed boy was sitting on a stool, stuffing his face with ramen, when he opened the front curtains. Jiraiya ruffled the boy's hair and remarked, "You know that you eat that stuff too much." Jiraiya. "Sensei, you made it," Naruto exclaimed, grinning like a fox. "Of course, but why are you so happy?" Jiraiya inquired, grinning at the yellow-headed boy. Naruto pulled out the hite that Iruka had given him from his pocket and exclaimed, "Look, to the toad sage." Jiraiya laughed and ruffled the boy's hair, saying, "I guess you're a ninja now, huh?" "Lunch is on me," Jiraiya declared, grinning broadly as he turned to face the boy. After they placed their food order, Jiraiya looked at the boy and remarked, "We never really got to talk about what happened after I was gone." Naruto looked at his sensei and laughed, "Oh yeah, same old things, and Sasuke and I got into one last fight." Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Oh, you're going to tell me how it was or not?" Naruto began, "This is how it happened." Rewind. All of the students were present when Naruto entered the classroom, but Iruka and Mizuki were not there because they were in a meeting with the Hokage. Naruto moved to the rear of the class and took his customary seat next to Shikamaru, who was already sound asleep. Naruto looked up to see the lone sole survivor of the Uchiha massacre standing in front of him as Sasuke rose from his seat and strode toward the yellow headed boy with all of his fangirls behind him, which infuriated him. Sasuke looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, fight me." "Why?" inquired Naruto as he stood up. Sakura said with heart in her eyes, "Sasuke-kun doesn't need to explain his reasons to you. He's fighting for my honor." "Shut up, Banshee, I don't think I was speaking to you," Naruto said, merely glancing at the girl. Sakura shouted, "Shut up, Baka," while glaring at the boy. The Uchiha looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, I want to fight you to see how strong you really are. The instructors are not around, so we can go all out." "Good enough," Naruto remarked, glancing at the boy. "Are there any rules?" Naruto inquired, glancing at the Uchiha boy. Sasuke looked at him and said, "Ninjutsu and taijutsu only, no weapons or any other hidden skills." He had a suspicion that Naruto had called forth all of the toads that day. "All right, let's go," Naruto said as he walked toward the window and leapt out, the children trailing behind him. Shikamaru, the match's referee, stood in the center, while Naruto and Sasuke stood opposite each other outside. Shikamaru looked at the boy with the yellow hair and asked, "Naruto, are you ready?" Naruto said, "Hi," adopting the fox stance. Shikamaru looked at the boy and asked, "Sasuke, are you ready?" The boy simply said, "HN," as he assumed the fighting stance of the academy. Shikamaru jumped away from them and said, "Okay, go." Sasuke and Naruto were staring at each other, waiting for one of them to initiate contact. Naruto, fed up with waiting, chose to initiate contact. His opponent, who had raven hair, was in front of him when he charged. Naruto clenched his fist, pulled it back, and hurled it in the direction of Sasuke's pallid face. When the fist strikes, Sasuke skids backwards a little. Sasuke reappears with his own fist. Naruto sideways shifts just enough to avoid the fist. Sasuke blocks Naruto's attempt to strike the Uchiha in the chin with his elbow by catching it with his other hand and pushing him away. Naruto whirls around in an attempt to strike Sasuke's face with another fist. Naruto barely scrapes his cheek when Sasuke makes a slight movement. Sasuke swiftly retaliated, landing the blow squarely in Naruto's abdomen. He connected another blow after charging his other fist with Chakra after landing the first one, winding him just a little bit this time. Naruto coughed and jumped back, then ran back toward him while dodging another blow. Sasuke leapt over his outstretched leg as the yellow-headed boy swept beneath it. Sasuke was sent flying backwards when Naruto struck his chin with a fist covered in chakra as he was descending. Returning to his taijutsu stance, Naruto held up his hand, urging the Uchiha to give it another go. Sasuke got up and cleaned himself up. The fangirls yelled, "Sasuke-kun, should we take this to the next level?" The Uchiha asked, performing a few quick hand seals before whispering, "Kaden. Bukaku no Jutsu. Fire style, Grand Fireball Jutsu." Then, using a lot of chakra, he exhaled a large fireball from his mouth that was intended for the yellow-headed boy. When Naruto realized the danger, he jumped back a few yards to avoid the fireball and began performing his own hand seals. He gathered a lot of chakra in his mouth and chest, saying to himself, "Kaden. Enden. Fire style. Fireball," and a large jet of fire shot out of his mouth, colliding with the grand fireball. The two fireballs battle for dominance until they both subsided. Naruto vanished and then resurfaced in front of the Uchiha Avenger with his fist balled up. He threw a strong punch at the raven-haired boy, hitting him in the stomach and sending him reeling backward. However, before he could hit the ground, he flipped back and landed on his feet before being struck down by the yellow-haired boy who had suddenly materialized behind him. Sakura sobbed as she saw the boy on the ground and said, "Sasuke-kun." With some blood in the corner of his mouth, Sasuke stood up and brushed himself clean once more. He glared at the yellow-haired boy across from him. Naruto vanished in an instant and then reappeared in front of the boy with the raven hair, but this time the Uchiha was prepared for the attack. Naruto kicked the raven-haired Uchiha in the head, but Sasuke dodged and swept beneath Naruto's legs, causing the boy to leap into the air. The Uchiha Avenger performed a few quick hand seals before saying to himself, "Kaden. Karyu Enden. Fire style. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet," and he released a medium ball of fire in the shape of a dragon from his mouth. "Kawarimi no Jutsu. Replacement Jutsu," declared Naruto without hand seals, and he replaced himself with a log that was completely burned. Since the fire dragon was supposed to be larger than this, Sasuke was aware that it was still unperfected and that he needed to learn the just you. Sasuke looked at the boy who had just emerged from behind the tree and thought, My Sharingan could not copy any of his jutsus. Naruto said, "You got better, Teme," grinning at the boy. As Sasuke returned to his clan's taijutsu stance, he said, "You too, Dobi." Although he was an elite Uchiha, Sasuke knew he could not keep up with Naruto in a taijutsu battle because the boy was much faster than him. He pushed this knowledge to the back of his mind because he did not want to consider it. The yellow-haired boy assumed the fox stance and ran toward the boy at a rather slow pace, knowing that the Uchiha Avenger had to finish the fight in the next 2 moves because he was running out of chakra. Sasuke was about to attack him from the front, but as soon as Naruto got in front of him, the boy went down like an animal and vanished. His Sharingan was unable to follow the boy, and he was unsure of why because his Dujutsu was in effect. Sasuke instantly turned around when Naruto reappeared behind the raven-haired boy on all fours, but the yellow-haired boy caught him with a strong punch to the stomach, sending him skidding back. Shikamaru stepped between them and declared, "I'm going to have to stop the match." "What?" Kiba exclaimed, glancing at the slothful genius. "You heard me," Shikamaru said, turning to face the untamed-looking boy, Iruka. "Sensei will be back any minute now." Naruto approached the boy with the raven hair who was lying on the ground and extended his hand for him to accept. Looking at the boy with the raven hair on the ground, Sasuke yelled, "Sasuke-kun don't need your help. Right, Sasuke-kun?" Sasuke took Naruto's hand and stood up, saying, "HN." Sakura said, glancing at the boy, "Sasuke-kun." Sasuke looked at the girl and said, "Don't you know when to shut up?" Naruto laughed and remarked, "You know, you're not that bad. I was thinking the same thing." The end of the flashback. "Wow, you've really improved, huh?" Jiraiya said, grinning as she gazed at the boy. "Yeah, I'm awesome, right?" Naruto said, continuing to stuff ramen into his face. Jiraiya looked at the boy as she got up and said, "Naruto, go home and get some rest." Naruto exclaimed, "Okay, Sensei," and then he hurriedly left the ramen stand, grinning broadly. Jiraiya got up as soon as a group of Anbu appeared outside the ramen stand in puffs of chakra smokes because he knew they were coming for him. He left and stood in front of the Anbu group that had been dispatched to get him. With a fleeting smile, Jiraiya asked, "How can I help you fellas?" The team captain wearing the elephant mask said, "Hello Jiraiya. Sama, we were sent to bring you to the council." With the Anbu team sent to retrieve him, Jiraiya said, "I might as well get it over with," before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Everyone was already there when Jiraiya and the Anbu burst into the council chamber, but they all left as soon as the Anbu appeared, leaving the fabled ninja in front of the council. Everyone on the shinobi side of the council was unhappy because they knew what they were going to discuss, while the others were simply disgusted by the problem that was going to be addressed. Shikaku had a bored out of this world expression on his face. Jiraiya, who still did not understand why he had been brought here, turned to see the Hokage grinning. Jiraiya questioned, "How can I help you?" from his position. Kaharu, an elderly woman who was on the Hokage's advisory council and was on the same genin team as him, said, "Okay Jiraiya-san, we asked you here so that we can tell you to take an apprentice." Jiraiya calmly looked at the elderly woman and said, "I don't think you can tell me when to take an apprentice." Kaharu said to the Toad Sage, "We just suggest that you take one." She knew that they couldn't impose anything on him while the Hokage was present, and that they couldn't even if the old man wasn't because of his free spirit. "And who would that be, if I may ask?" Jiraiya asked, grinning as he looked at the elderly woman. The other advisor to the Hokage Hamaru, an elderly man wearing spectacles, replied, "Uchiha Sasuke. The kid is a genius I'm sure, considering who his brother is, but he doesn't work hard like Itachi and thinks the world owes him something. Secondly, I've been inside the academy multiple times and all he ever talks about is gaining power to kill his brother and revenge his clan." Jiraiya replied with a grin on his face until the final sentence. Jiraiya said, "But I don't think so, and I already have an apprentice," as she prepared to enter the council chamber. A civilian councilman sitting next to a woman with bubblegum pink hair yelled, "Who is it?" "Uzumaki Naruto container of Kyubi no Yuko," Jiraiya remarked, grinning as he turned around. An irate member yelled at the Toad Sage, "No, that demon does not deserve any training from a Sanin. We demand that you train the Uchiha." Before anyone could react, the man's head fell to the ground, splattering blood everywhere. As he cleaned his katana, Sarutobi said, "I'm sure you did not forget of the law I made prohibiting anyone from talking of the boy like that." He then snapped his fingers, and 2 Anbus arrived to clean up the mess. Everyone's faces were either filled with fear or reverence for the elderly man as they gazed at the Hokage. As he walked back to his previous position, Sarutobi asked, "Now, shall we continue with this meeting?" Danzo said from his seat, "Jiraiya-san, we the council demand that you train the Uchiha." Shikaku asked languidly, "What do you mean, we?" And a few other members of the Shinobi Council nodded their heads in agreement. A pink-haired council member yelled loudly, "You will train Sasuke, Jiraiya, because we tell you to." Looking at the pink-haired councilwoman who simply nodded along with a few other council members, Jiraiya laughed, "What the fuck, you expect me to train a power? Hungry, revenge. Hungry brat because you demanded of me." After hearing how Jiraiya killed Mizuki and seeing someone close to her die, the woman knew better than to criticize Naruto. Jiraiya pointed a bird at her and said, "I don't give a fly's ass what you want, Banshee, why don't you go choke on a dick?" "And why is that, Jiraiya?" Kaharu inquired, glancing at the toad sage with a displeased expression on her face. Jiraiya looked back at her and said, "Duh, because there's only one person in this village who can tell me what to do, and that's the Hokage." Hamaru stood up to support her teammate and secret lover, saying, "You do realize that the council has more authority in the village than the Hokage, right?" Looking calmly at his advisor, the Hokage asked, "Since when did you have more power than me again?" Danzo began, "And what do you say, Sarutobi? Sama, the Uchiha needs the training more than the..." before quickly interrupting him so he wouldn't lose his mind too soon. Danzo said, glancing at the Hokage, "Naruto-san." Sarutobi grinned as he looked at the elderly war hawk and said, "Jiraiya has the freedom to decide whether or not to train the boy." Jiraiya repeated, grinning, "And I said, no." The Hokage smirked and said, "He's no longer a village shinobi, so he can train whoever he wants." "Fuck you." Jiraiya simply flicked them off and left the room grinning broadly. The other members of the council were incensed at his behavior, and nearly every shinobi member was laughing uncontrollably. The civilian council members had to bring in someone else to do the work because they wanted their priceless Uchiha to grow stronger. Looking at no one in particular, Sarutobi asked, "Are there any other matters to discuss?" "No, sir," Hiyashi replied, glancing at the man. "Then dismissed," Sarutobi said, vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Back in the office of the Hokage, Sarutobi asked the Anbu wearing the cat mask in front of him, "Cat, could you please bring all the Junins who signed up for a team this year?" The Anbu member said, "Hi Hokage. Sama," before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. When the Anbu in the cat mask returned to the office a few minutes later, he was alone and waited for the Junins to arrive. He simply stood behind the Hokage. The door was knocked on a few seconds later, and the Hokage beckoned them inside. The first person in the office was a man with gravity-defying hair who had his face buried in an orange book. A man in a green jumpsuit with bushy eyebrows and a bowl cut followed him, and behind him was a woman wearing a sexy red and black dress with red eyes. A man with a beard was walking slowly behind her, followed by 6 other Junins. After making a brief bow to the Hokage, the man with the hair that defied gravity went to stand in the corner, still reading his book. "Do you mind putting that book away, Kakashi-san?" asked Sarutobi, grinning as he looked at the man. The woman in the red and black dress glared at the man and said, "Why do you read that filth anyway, Kakashi?" "Please don't say that, Kurenai-san," Kakashi said, grinning as he put the book away. Sarutobi looked at the man and said, "Guy, why are you here? Don't you already have a team?" Guy struck a nice guy pose and said, "I want to see the team that my eternal rival selects." "Then, Kakashi, you have the honor of being the first selection," Sarutobi said, grinning at the man. Writing his name on a piece of paper, Sarutobi stated, "Your team will be Team 7. With a smile on his face, Sarutobi gave Kakashi the list of graduates, which included Sasuke Uchiha first, Hinata next, and so on. After looking through every student and removing 3 photos, Kakashi gave the list of graduates to the bearded man, who also looked through the list and removed 3 photos. The Junins took their turns telling the Hokage their choices after everyone had taken their genins. Kakashi was the next to take the stage. Kakashi took the stage and gave Sarutobi the picture of the tree he had chosen for his genin team. "I selected Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Uzumaki Naruto as my final member," Kakashi said, grinning at the elderly man. Looking at the seasoned Junin, the Hokage questioned, "Why did you choose those 3? "Uchiha Sasuke because I'm the only one in the village with the Sharingan, thus making me the best teacher for him. Haruno Sakura because there was no other girls that would fit in this team, and Uzumaki Naruto because the boy has the potential to be a great ninja if guided in the right direction. My team is a battle team," said Kakashi before pulling back to let the next Junin clarify. Sarutobi looked at the new Junin and said, Yuri Kurenai, it's your turn. You will have Team 8 today. Yes Hokage. Sama, I picked Aburame Shino, Inazuka Kiba and Hyuga Hinata, and my team is tracking and recon team. Shino and Kiba because of their tracking abilities and Hinata because of her Byakugan, said Kurenai before taking a step back. Team 10, Sarutobi Asuma, please step up, exclaimed the third, glancing at his son. My team is a backup team and I picked Nara Shikamaru, Ino Yamanaka, and Akamichi Choji. I don't know why I picked them. Oh yeah, because they are the new generation of the infamous Ino.Shi.Cho, stated Asuma before taking a step back. Sarutobi grinned and said, okay, thank you, you are all dismissed. The Hokage was left to handle the paperwork and officially establish the team after all the Junins left the office. Sarutobi said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu, without using any hand seals. He then made a single clone of himself, who sat behind the desk and began working on the paperwork that was there. Since it was getting late and Sarutobi had been working all day, he left the clone behind and went home to spend time with his family. Tomorrow. When Naruto awoke, he was already ecstatic because he would be joining a team to become a full genin today and would be able to go on missions and other things. Naruto ran outside in his boxers to complete his workout because he knew he still needed to complete the exercises Jiraiya had assigned him some time ago. After 500 push-ups and 500 sit-ups to begin the workout, he was sweating and his face was hidden by his wild yellow hair when he woke up. After eating something inside the house, Naruto had to return to the academy to discover who his teammates were. After entering the house, Naruto went directly to the shower, turned on the water, and, after undressing, stepped under the hot water. The boy was getting ready for the day, and Jiraiya was still sound asleep. The man was sleeping well because a pretty woman in her mid-30s was lying next to him, naked. The woman had long black hair, a lovely face, and two large, firm breasts on her chest. With a towel wrapped around his waist, Naruto exited the shower and shook his head like a dog to dry his hair before returning to his room to read. Before donning his black cargo pants, he pulled a boxer out of his drawer, wrapped it around his ankle with a black bandage, and then put on his sandals. Before putting on his long-sleeved black and orange shirt with an opening around the chest like Jiraiya's, Naruto got up and put on his black fishnet shirt. With the kunai holder on his right leg and the shuriken holder just above his butt, Naruto fastened both weapons to him. Within the council chamber, the third Hokage of the village began. As you are aware, the teams were selected last night. Hamaru and Kaharu looked at the elderly man and exclaimed, we did not know. What are the teams? Shikaku inquired, glancing at the elderly man who was wearing a bored expression. Sarutobi began by saying, Team 7 consist of Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Uzumaki Naruto, and their team Sensei will be Hitaki Kakashi. After going through teams 1 through 6, the civilians in the chamber were in a frenzy, demanding to know why they had placed their priceless Uchiha on the same team as the village's bad guys. Quiet. Asked Sarutobi prior to continuing. Team 8 consist of Inazuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata and Aburame Shino, and their team Sensei will be Yuri Kurenai. Team 9 will stay the same from last year, and Team 10 consist of Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Ino and Akamichi Choji, and their team Sensei will be Sarutobi Asuma. Any question? Sarutobi inquired, surveying the area. Kaharu looked at the Hokage and said, could you please bring Hitaki Kakashi here? 5 minutes later, a group of his former Anbu teammates approached Kakashi, who was reading his book and had a bored expression on his face as he entered the council chamber. He knew he couldn't ignore it like everything else, but they insisted that the council see him right away. Kakashi calmly looked around the room and said, hello. I assume you understand why we called you here, Kakashi-san? Kaharu inquired, glancing at the copy ninja. I guess not. I don't know, Kakashi replied, calmly observing the elderly woman. Kaharu calmly looked at the well-known Sharingan wielder and said, it's about your future genin team, we want you to train Sasuke Uchiha. With one eyebrow raised in response to what he had just been asked to do, Kakashi asked, and what about Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura? Before he realized what he was saying, an elderly man on the opposite side of the room said, we don't care what happens to that demon. At the same moment, Shikaku, Choza, Sume, and the Hokage all said, say that again. Choza and Sume yelled at the councilman, who was already shaking after realizing his error. That demon is the one that got our boys to start training. Shikaku said idly, without even trying to raise his head from where he was sleeping, That demon got my lazy-ass son to take training seriously. The Hokage snapped his fingers and said, I will not kill you. I have something worse in mind for you. A group of Anbu then materialized behind the elderly man. The Hokage addressed the Anbu team, saying, please take him to Ibiki for me. Before they removed him from the council chamber, the elderly man yelled. The Hokage grinned as he looked at the copycat ninja and said, Kakashi, you will train everyone on your team that takes training seriously, don't train them. The pink-haired councilwoman glared at the Hokage and declared, the Uchiha need the power to kill his brother. Heishi remarked, and he will do anything for that power. The remark made by Heishi infuriated the council. The Hokage looked at the woman with a charming smile on his face and said, the next time you try to force something on one of my loyal shinobis again. The woman with the pink hair stood up and demanded, and what will you do? You will be immediately put to death for treason, the Hokage declared. The pink-haired woman yelled, you can't do that, clearly upset with the elderly Hokage. Try me, please, Haruno-san, Sarutobi said, letting loose a great deal of murderous intent in the council chamber. Sarutobi grinned at the man and said, you are dismissed, Kakashi-san. For the residents of Hidden Leaf Village, the following morning was a thrilling one. Birds were flying over the village on this lovely morning, which was full of life. Even though the sun had just risen, the weather was stunning. People were going about their daily lives in the streets, and some of them were discussing what had happened the night before, including Mizuki's death. The village was now aware that Jiraiya had returned and that Mizuki was a traitor. It was a typical day for some parents, while for others it was the day their child would officially become a ninja of the leaf. It was the morning following the village council's attempt to obtain special attention for their priceless Uchiha from the village's Toad Sage, Jiraiya of the Sannin, and one of the village's most formidable Junin, copy ninja Hitaki Kakashi. The yellow-haired genin hurried out of bed when he heard the alarm vibrating next to Naruto's bed. He would finally be able to join a team and go on an exciting mission for the village today. In his mind, there were countless options at the moment. Save a princess, possibly save a nation. After running into the bathroom and turning on the water quickly, he jumped into the tub and screamed, ouch, 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 before hurriedly exiting because the water was too hot for him. Before Naruto had to go to the academy to find out who was on his team, he stood beneath the cooling water and began his shower. The Uchiha compound. A boy with a superior attitude and a head that resembled a duck's butt stood on the opposite side of the village, one of the last surviving members of the Uchiha clan. His one true dream was to become strong enough to kill his brother Uchiha Itachi, whom he saw as Naruto Uzumaki's rival. Sasuke Uchiha had already completed preparing for his academy debut. He felt that being a member of a team would hinder his progress. Sasuke had changed his clothes and was wearing a superior expression as he left the front of his room. He was now dressed in black pants that fell just below his knees and a dark blue shirt with the Uchiha crest on the back. He carried his kunai holder on his right leg and a shuriken holder with ninja wires inside on his waist behind him. With a sense of superiority, he rose to his feet and began to walk toward the entrance of his compound. After leaving the compound, he made his way directly to the academy, walking slowly and keeping his hands in his pockets. The Namikaze compound. Naruto stood smiling in front of the mirror after completing his outfit change, then he turned around and took another look at himself. He looked like a miniature version of the fourth thanks to his longer hair and thinner head spikes, which perfectly framed his face. Since the seal that was limiting his growth was removed some time ago, he was now 5 feet 6 inches. Naruto was dressed in long black cargo pants, with black sandals that fit him perfectly and white bandages wrapped around his ankle and lower portion of his pants. Under his black shirt, which had an orange line from his shoulder to his hand, was his black fishnet shirt. His hair was mostly hidden by his recently acquired Hite.8, which was perched on his forehead. Finally, Naruto said to no one in particular, I'm ready to go. Naruto began walking toward his room's door. He left the room and went downstairs, where he discovered Jiraiya sipping tea in front of the table. His scroll was resting on the tea table, and Jiraiya was already dressed. When Naruto noticed that a plate of rice and vegetables was already on the other side of the table, he moved to sit across from Jiraiya and began to eat. Jiraiya chuckled as she gazed at the boy. You know you're going to be late, right Gaki? Mouthful of food, Naruto muttered, am I? No, Sensei. As Jiraiya waited for the boy's response, she smiled and said, hurry up, boy. If you're late, you're going to have to repeat the year in the academy. Naruto ran out of the kitchen and out the front door, screaming, what? As he made his way to the compound's entrance. He fell for it. Jiraiya laughed, clutching his stomach. I don't want to stay in the academy, was the phrase Naruto kept saying as he ran toward the academy at full speed. Naruto discovered that he was the only person in his classroom when he dashed into the academy. Everyone in the class could see his hite across his forehead as he stood in front of them. While some students were taken aback, others, including Shikamaru, Hinata, Shino, and Choji, were already aware of what had transpired with Mizuki because Shikamaru had informed them. Sakura was the one who appeared shocked that the boy had graduated because she still didn't think he was strong enough to be a genin like her. It's true that she witnessed his abilities during his battles with Sasuke and her twice. She still refused to acknowledge that Naruto had defeated the Uchiha in that particular match because she didn't think it was possible. Sasuke was sitting next to Sakura, both hands clasped under his chin, and he was actually not even looking at the boy. He was merely pondering. Why? He should be on a team, but why? They will only prevent him from realizing his full potential as soon as possible. With a suspicious expression on his face, Iruka asked, Naruto, why are you late? With a serious expression on his face, Naruto concluded, well, holding his chin. I was on my way here, when I realized that I didn't have any clothes on, so I had to return home to get dressed, which is the reason I'm late right now. Sakura and Iruka yelled, Naruto, baka, you're a liar, as the rest of the class laughed at the boy's justification. Iruka shouted, go sit down, while continuing to glare at the boy. Behind a sleeping Shikamaru, Naruto sat down in the back of the room, while Choji nibbled on some chips next to him. Akamaru was on his desk now, playing happily with his master while Kiba played with him. Iruka grabbed a piece of paper that was on his person, opened it, and scowled as he read it. Okay, since you guys are now genin, you are to be put in teams of 3 and will have a Junin Sensei to go on mission with you. Iruka began. The children were bored to death as Iruka explained, you guys are rookie genin, the lowest ninja rank right now. Above the genins are the chunin, which gets to go on missions alone sometimes, and above all is the junins, which can choose to do missions or train genins of the village. They get to lead missions and even go on solo missions outside the village for a period of time. Okay now. Iruka began by introducing the children to their respective teams. Iruka didn't finish when Sakura jumped up and began yelling, yes, I told you true love conquers all Ino.pig. After calling out the members of the first 6 teams, Team 7 will consist of Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura. Sakura finished with hearts in her eyes. The inner Sakura screamed, YEAHHHHHHH. Winking at the girl, Ino said, whatever forehead, Sasuke.kun doesn't like you anyway. Iruka shouted, shut up both of you and let me finish, just as Sakura was about to object. Iruka waited for some shouting, and that's exactly what he got. And the final member of Team 7 will be Uzumaki Naruto and Junin Sensei will be Hitaki Kakashi, he concluded. Naruto pointed to Sakura and Sasuke and yelled, what the hell? Why am I in that team? Kiba looked at the boy and laughed, Naruto, you are a really unfortunate bastard. Sakura pointed to Naruto and shouted, why is he on our team? Iruka said, shut up, and then he resumed reading the paper. Iruka concluded, glancing at the group, Team 8 will consist of Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburame Shino. Your Junin Sensei will be Yuhi Kurenai. Gazing at the boy, Naruto pleaded, I will gladly switch with you Kiba, please. Kiba looked at the boy and laughed, no thanks. Iruka concluded by folding the paper back with a smile on his face. Team 9 is still from last year's graduating class, and Team 10 is the remaining 3 Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Ino, and Akamichi Choji, and your Junin Sensei will be Sarutobi Isuma. Now all of you wait for your sensei to come get you. Shikamaru, how about you be a good friend and switch with me? Naruto pleaded once more. Shikamaru replied, his face drowsy, no thanks, my team is already troublesome as it is. A man entered the classroom with his hands in his pockets, a beard on his face, and a cigarette in his mouth. The tall, well-built man was dressed in a shinobi uniform. With his hands still in his pockets and the cigarette still in his mouth, he gazed around at all the students. Before turning around and heading for the door, Isuma said, my name is Sarutobi Isuma, sa Team 10, please follow me. As she slowly made her way down the stairs toward the front of the class, Ino asked no one in particular, why am I stuck in this team? Shikamaru stood up languidly and followed her, with Choji trailing him. As they left the house, they passed a woman wearing a red and black dress, which was somewhat short, only reaching halfway to her thigh. Her eyes were red. She was wearing a shuriken holster on her left thigh and some shinobi sandals. Upon entering the room, she exuded confidence and gazed around with eyes that resembled those of the Sharingan. Kurenai waited for her team in front of the class, saying, "I'm Yuhi Kurenai, and I'm the sensei of Team 8, so Kiba, Shino, and Hinata please follow me." Shino, Kiba, and Hinata stood up and walked slowly after the woman as she left the classroom. After an hour, each team left one by one, with Team 7 still waiting for their sensei to arrive and collect them. Since everyone had already left, the academy was silent. Sakura was pestering Sasuke for dates, while Naruto sat quietly. Since learning that he was on the same team as Naruto, Sasuke remained silent. He didn't know how he felt about the boy at the time, other than the desire to become stronger than him. After getting up and moving toward the board, Naruto grabbed 3 erasers and returned to his seat. Naruto, who was fed up with waiting for the so-called Kakashi to arrive, asked with a smile, "Do you have any ninja wire on you, Sasuke?" Without saying a word, Sasuke pulled some ninja wires from his shuriken holster and gave them to the boy with the yellow hair. Naruto approached the door, slightly opened it, placed an eraser on top of it, and then tied one end of the wire to the door's bottom. After grabbing the other end of the wire, Naruto carried the 2 additional erasers back to his seat. Sakura glared at the boy and yelled, "What the hell are you doing, Baka?" With a smile, Naruto prepared the 2 erasers to shoot as soon as the door opened. "Shut up, I'll show him to keep us waiting for so long." A man with his face buried in an orange book was outside the classroom 2 minutes later. He pushed the door slightly as he walked, causing the door's top eraser to fall. However, the man was not a Junin for no reason, as he easily avoided the eraser without even looking. His face was still buried in the small orange book when 2 erasers silently came at him. He dodged one of them with ease, but he was unaware that there were 2 of them, so the other one struck him in the face, turning the mask he was wearing somewhat white. The man was dressed in the typical shinobi uniform worn by Junins and Chunins in the Hidden Leaf. A blue mask that matched his long shirt and pants completely obscured the lower portion of his face. His Hite.8 obscured his left eye, leaving only his right eye to be seen on his face. His gray hair stood straight up in an unnatural way, as if it had its own gravity. He put down his book and turned to face the group in front of him, which included a dark-haired boy who was glaring at him, a pink-haired girl who was giggling slightly, and a yellow-haired boy who was rolling around on the ground laughing. He said to the group in front of him, "My first impression of you guys is that I hate you." Naruto continued to laugh as he answered, "And my first impression of you is that you're a late Cyclop." Kakashi said to them, "Come meet me on the roof," before vanishing into a cloud of smoke. Sasuke got up first, leapt out the window, and began to walk along the wall toward the academy's roof. Sakura hurried after him and leapt out the window, but she landed on her butt while attempting to climb the wall, so she chose to jump back in and use the stairs instead. After gathering his thoughts, Naruto leapt out the window and, like Sasuke, simply walked up the wall while holding his hands behind his head. When Naruto arrived at the roof, he noticed that Sasuke was seated and that Kakashi was reading the orange book across from him. Seeing that, he decided it would be best to sit opposite Kakashi just like Sasuke did. When Sakura reached the roof, she moved to sit across from Sasuke, who was sitting next to him. Kakashi casually said to them, "Why don't you introduce yourselves? Tell me your name, hobbies, likes, dislikes, future goals, and so on." Sakura smiled as she said to Kakashi, "You should go first, Sensei, so that we can see how to do it." With his visible eye forming an upside-down U shape, Kakashi concluded, Okay. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. My hobbies are none of your business. My likes and dislikes are none of your business. I don't plan on sharing my dreams with you." Together, the 3 children thought, all he told us was his name. Kakashi gestured to Sakura, saying, "Your turn, Pinky." Sakura finished glaring at Naruto, who flicked her away and returned to staring at nothing. "My name is Haruno Sakura, and my hobbies are shopping and stalking. I mean doing my hair, I like." She looked at Sasuke with hearts in her eyes and giggled. "I dislike Naruto. Baka." "You next, Blondie," Kakashi remarked, turning to face Naruto. "My name is not Blondie Cyclop. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. My hobbies are training with Arrow, Sennin, and hanging out with Kichi and Tatsu. I like toads, the Hidden Leaf Village, Arrow, Sennin, Gigi and my friends, and I dislike people who hates others for no apparent reason. My dream is to surpass all the other Hokages and become the greatest Hokage ever." Naruto turned to the Hokage monument after completing introducing himself. This boy, Kakashi thought, grinning at the boy beneath his mask. Who is Arrow? Senin? Inquired Kakashi, who was observing the boy with interest. Naruto replied, oh. I live with him, without providing Kakashi with much information regarding Jiraiya. Naruto was on the ground laughing when Kakashi gestured toward Sasuke and said, go ahead, pigeon cut. Sakura glared daggers at Naruto and Kakashi and yelled, shut up. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I have few likes and many dislikes. My hobby is training and my dream for the future is more of an ambition. I will kill my brother and avenge my clan. Sasuke monotonously concluded his remarks. Kakashi looked at the boy and thought, I need to work on his avenger mentality. This boy has a lot of issues going on with him. Sasuke-kun is so cool and mysterious, Sakura squealed to herself. Kakashi told his new genin team, alright, now that we've finished all the introductions, I suggest you guys rest up for your genin test tomorrow. Sakura screamed at the top of her lungs, genin test? What do you mean? We passed the test already? The boys covered their ears. Naruto looked at the girl with the pink hair and laughed, can you be any louder? Yes, as I was saying, you still have to pass my test before becoming real genins. Every sensei gives their team a test of their own, to test and see if they are fit to be genins. Out of 27 students that graduated the academy, only 3 teams has a high possibility of becoming genins, explained Kakashi as he examined the 3 aghast. Before vanishing in a cloud of smoke, Kakashi gave the order, you can't eat anything before the test or you will throw the food up. Naruto asked, rising to his feet with a serious expression on his face, what are you going to do now, Sasuke? The Uchiha grinned stoically in response. Naruto walked away from the boy with his hands behind his head and said, let's go get something to eat, so that we can talk strategy about this test. Sakura yelled, glaring at the boy's back, Sasuke-kun is going on a date with me, not anywhere with you. She asked sweetly, right Sasuke-kun? But when she turned to look, Sasuke was already following Naruto while keeping his hands in his pockets. When he noticed that Sakura was not moving, Naruto asked, are you coming or not? Without turning to face her. Sakura jogged quickly and caught up to them, frowning. She accompanied Sasuke as they descended the stairs to the village's commercial area, which housed all of the stores and eateries. After deciding to go to the barbecue restaurant, they walked slowly and silently. Sakura was making a concerted effort to strike up a conversation with the dark-haired Uchiha, but neither of them was speaking to the other. Sasuke was merely wondering why Naruto was being so kind to him. He wasn't really giving Sakura any attention. Because he was a elite, his father first forbade him from hanging out with other children, so he never really had any friends. He is a Uchiha, and he still has the mindset that everyone else is beneath him. However, Naruto didn't want to be his enemy even though he wasn't really attempting to be his friend. He recalled that Naruto, like himself, was raised without parents from birth. For him, Sakura was different. The girl had nothing in common with him and was simply annoying. She kept asking him out on dates without even knowing who he was. When they finally reached the barbecue restaurant, the 3 of them grabbed a booth, sat down, and then each took a menu and began perusing it. The waiter brought them the meat they had ordered, along with some seasoning and some vegetables. Sakura didn't mention that she was on a diet, but Naruto and Sasuke did put some meat on the grill. As Naruto ate his meat, he asked, so what do you guys think the test will be? Sasuke replied, probably some physical test, while he was eating meat. Sakura ate a vegetable and inquired, like what? With his mouth full of food, Naruto muttered, that Kakashi guy is strong. Taking him on alone won't be an option, I think he's trying to test our teamwork. You guys probably didn't feel it. Sakura looked at Sasuke and grinned heartily, saying, I bet Sasuke-kun can take him on alone. With some meat in his mouth, Sasuke muttered, so what do you plan we do Dobi? After swallowing his food, Naruto concluded, we work together and do exactly what he expects us to do, Teme. Sasuke nodded and carried on eating his meat. I suppose we'll know what to do when the test comes. As he continued to stuff his face with the mouth-watering meat, Naruto said, I think we should take the rest of the day off just to rest. With a frustrated expression on his face, Naruto told her, Banshee, you should go home and rest. And you better eat before showing up for the test. Sakura glared at the boy and screamed, why did you just call me Baka? So loudly that everyone turned to stare at them. Miss, we are going to have to ask you to leave please. You almost killed one of our customers with your voice, the restaurant owner said, grinning at the table and gesturing to the elderly woman who was trembling in her grandson's arm. Sakura exclaimed, what? I didn't do anything, once more. The store owner yelled, Miss, you are not allowed to enter here ever again. While Sasuke and Naruto were still eating, Sakura stood up and left the store. Sakura yelled, this is not fair, from outside before he picked up a rock and threw it at the storefront window. Naruto swiftly moved to stop the rock by using the shunshin to appear in front of the girl. As Sakura smiled, Naruto cautioned her, you shouldn't try to do that, Sakura. When Sakura saw Naruto sitting inside eating, she thought, what the? And a moment later, he was standing in front of her. With his eyes wide, Sasuke managed to say only, H. How? Naruto walked back into the restaurant to finish his meal and said, just go home, Sakura. As he chewed his food, Naruto returned to his seat and grinned at the Uchiha. Now where were we? Yeah, I think we should track and follow Kakashi Sensei to see what he does, Naruto said. Sasuke gave the boy a suspicious look and asked, how do you plan on tracking him? Looking at the boy, Naruto said, I got my ways, but you can't tell anyone, or I'll kill you. Thinking, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he made a single clone without using any hand seals. The clone rose and made his way to the door. Looking at his own reflection, Naruto said, do it then leave. A black and red little fox no larger than Pakun appeared in a puff of smoke after the clone exited the building, leapt onto the roof, and bit his thumb, drawing blood. He then went through a series of strange hand seals before whispering, Kachiyose no Jutsu. Who are you? Inquired the small fox, casting a tired glance at the boy. Naruto introduced himself to the young fox, saying, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I hold the contract with the foxes. The little fox chuckled, well, my name is Kiddoa, and I'm a fox. Naruto and the little fox laughed and said, funny guy huh? Kiddoa looked at the boy and said, what can I do for you? Before he vanished in a cloud of white smoke, the clone said, I need you to find someone for me. He's about 6 feet tall, gray haired, with one hand in his pocket and the other holding an orange book near his face. His left eye is covered by his Hite.8. Naruto grinned as he looked at the boy and said, follow me. Sasuke followed him with his hands in his pocket as he stood up, left the money on the table, and began to walk toward the restaurant's door with his hands behind his head. Naruto realized that the fox was already searching for the slothful ninja after recalling the discarded clone. Naruto halted and positioned himself against the rail of the little bridge near the eatery, saying, let's wait here. Without uttering a single word to the boy, Sasuke stood next to him. A minute or so later, Naruto heard the fox he had sent after Kakashi issue a high-pitched warning. Found him! Naruto exclaimed as he ran in the direction where he heard the fox, Sasuke trailing him by just a few feet. Because he didn't hear the fox's high-pitched sound, Sasuke followed Naruto as they began to jump from roof to roof. They arrived quickly, but Kakashi wasn't a nin.dog summoner for no reason, and he had left the area after hearing the fox's high-pitched sound. Sasuke and Naruto searched everywhere for the Junin, but they were unable to locate him. He had already left the area. While they were looking around, they were unaware that Kakashi was on a rooftop, watching them. With the book still in front of his face, Kakashi thought, they're following me, huh? Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Kakashi whispered, and the clone purposefully jumped down in the middle of the street with his book in hand so they could follow him around. Before they could begin pursuing the clone, Naruto and Sasuke leapt to the ground and hid behind a garbage can. The clone initially went in the direction of the adult store, where they swiftly changed into some civilians and followed the man inside. Although Naruto was coping well because he was used to living with the world's greatest pervert, they were still shocked by the sights that greeted them as soon as they entered the store. However, Sasuke was a different story. Due to the volume of blood circulating in his brain, he was having difficulty maintaining the transformation. In order to avoid appearing suspicious in front of the store owner, the two boys followed the clone's lead and continued to browse books as if nothing were wrong. After what felt like 2 hours, the clone walked out of the store and headed toward the village cemetery. They were unhappy that they had spent the last 2 hours learning nothing about their sensei other than the fact that he enjoyed porn, but they did follow the clone out of the store. Stopping dead in his tracks, Naruto began to reflect. Naruto was expressing all of his thoughts aloud when he said, he just jumped in the middle of the road. Walked the whole way without even looking back once. Sasuke dropped the transformation and looked at the yellow-headed boy, saying, so he knew we were following him. Naruto turned around and began walking back toward the center of the village with his hands behind his head, muttering, yeah, no wonder he spent so much time in the porn store. I don't even think that's the real him, maybe a clone. Don't forget to eat before the test tomorrow, he said, smiling as he waved to the Uchiha. Sasuke nodded and began to walk home. With a broad smile on his face and his hands behind his head, Naruto approached the ramen shop where you would meet Shino, Choji, Hinata, Kiba, and Shikamaru to distribute. Everyone was glaring and whispering at him as he walked down the streets, but he ignored them and continued walking with his hand behind his head. When he arrived at the ramen stand, he saw Shikamaru dozing on the counter, Shino, Hinata, and Kiba simply sitting down and chatting, and Choji holding 5 empty bowls in front of him. Naruto said, "Hey guys," before settling down next to Shikamaru, who was soundly asleep. H. LONN. Naruto.kun, Hinata said, her face flushed. Shino adjusted his glasses and said, "Good afternoon, Naruto.san." Kiba smiled, flashing his 2 fang-like teeth and asking, "What's up?" Choji muttered, still eating where he was sitting, hum. The fox suddenly said to the boy, "Kid, you'll have to erase their memory about your secret abilities." "Why?" Naruto gave the fox a perplexed response. "They can discover what you are really capable of on their own, since you should be the only one to know. Ninjas never divulge their abilities to other ninjas. Using the link, allies or not," described the fox. While speaking to Shino on the outside world, Naruto responded, "I can't do that, I trust them." "You're acting out of necessity rather than mistrust. Everyone you know will be preparing to counter you on a test if they are aware of all your skills." Kyuubi gave the boy an explanation. Naruto answered the 9-tailed fox, "Oh, I see. To make them forget what's on your mind right now, all you need to do is make 4 clones, perform these hand seals, and place your thumb on each of their foreheads." As the strong demon placed some hand seals in his head, the 9-tailed fox remarked, "Remember the time you demonstrated your summoning jutsu to them?" As he performed a single-handed seal and muttered, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he created 4 identical copies of himself, and they all gave him suspicious looks. When Naruto and all of the clones began going through a series of hand seals, they became even more perplexed. Then, without saying a word, each of the yellow-headed boys placed a thumb on their forehead. They all forgot that Naruto could call forth animals after the jutsu took effect in a split second. Since they had no feelings, they all just stared at him dumbly, wondering why in the world he had made these clones and gone through such a lengthy series of hand seals without doing anything. "We know you can do the clone jutsu, so why are you showing off?" Shikamaru was the first to say, as he looked at the boy with the yellow hair. Naruto smiled and sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck, saying, "I wasn't showing off." Shikamaru looked at the boy with his notoriously lethargic demeanor and said, "Difficult but whatever. Did you pass your test yet?" Naruto answered, "I didn't even take it yet, so that means you guys passed already," and Kiba smiled in response to the boy's query. Kiba looked at the boy and said, "Well, then your team is the only one that didn't pass the test yet." With a scowl, Naruto said, "Shut up Kiba, I think I realized that." Kiba yelled, "You shut up, you jerk," while glaring at Naruto. Hinata yelled, "S. Stop it," to break up the fight they all knew was going to break out, but her voice was so low that they couldn't hear her. Naruto roared back, glaring at the boy with daggers, "No, you shut up, before I make you shut up." Kiba shouted as he rose from his chair, "I'd like to see you try." Everyone fell silent in shock when Hinata yelled, "I said stop it," because she was usually quiet. Since Naruto and Kiba were at a loss for words, they simply sat down. Hinata, who was usually quiet, yelled, "I said stop it," and everyone fell silent in shock. Since Naruto and Kiba were at a loss for words, they simply sat down. Everyone was shocked that she had snapped like that, but Choji wasn't even angry about dropping the bowl of ramen he was eating. Shikamaru was sleeping on the counter of the ramen stand, and he was the only one going about his business. Hinata soon returned to her timid personality. Before Hinata had to leave for home, they hung out and discussed their team for the remainder of the day. They all left one by one after Hinata returned home because they had household chores to complete. When Naruto finally arrived at his house in the late afternoon, he noticed that Jiraiya was not yet there. Before waiting for Jiraiya to get home so the sage could train him, Naruto ran up the stairs and undressed in preparation for a shower. After entering the bathroom and turning on the water to warm it up, Naruto climbed into the tub and stood beneath the water for what felt like a minute. His hair swiftly cascaded over his face as the water landed on his head, revealing the true length of his hair. Yellow hair covered his face all the way up to his nose. With a bored expression on his face, Naruto exited the tub after more than 20 minutes, turned off the water, and grabbed his towel. He went into his room, pulled some shorts and a t-shirt from his drawer, and put them on before ruffling his hair, which returned to its typical disheveled appearance. Naruto didn't want to go training right now because he would be exhausted before the test the following day, so he left the room and went down the stairs to find something to do before falling asleep. While waiting for Jiraiya to return home, Naruto settled into the living room of the house and watched television. He kept waiting and the tall man had still not returned home, but he was not concerned because he knew that Jiraiya in the village could not possibly be in danger. After about half an hour, Naruto discovered that he was missing all of the test supplies, including wires, kunais, shurikens, and smoke bombs. The best course of action for Naruto, who didn't want to leave the house just yet, was to send a clone in his place. He said, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," and 2 clones materialized in front of him after performing the single-handed seal he usually used for the jutsu. He gave one of the clones instructions to go find Jiraiya and another to go find some cash upstairs for the supplies. While the other clone hurried up the stairs to retrieve the money, the one who was supposed to go find Jiraiya left the roof with his hands behind his head. Tomorrow. Since he knew Kakashi would be at least an hour late, Naruto was not in a rush when he woke up and hurried into the shower to prepare for his test with Team 7. Naruto went downstairs after getting dressed in the hopes of seeing Jiraiya, who was usually seated by the table, but the Toad Sage was not there. Before leaving the house and putting on the seals that protected it, Naruto made one last check for the scroll containing his materials, which was in his kunai holder. Although he knew Kakashi would arrive by 10 o'clock, if not later, he was still scheduled to meet Kakashi and the other members of Team 7 at 9 o'clock. With a bored look on his face, Naruto walked slowly while holding his hand behind his head. The boy with the yellow hair was on his way to his favorite restaurant to have breakfast before the test, but it took him a little longer to get there. He walked in and sat on the stool in the center of the counter after pulling back one of the curtains that obscured the interior of the ramen stand from the outside. He took a seat, and the stand's owner was delighted to see his regular client as always. After placing his order and waiting for a few minutes, Tucci placed the bowl of vegetable ramen in front of Naruto. He ate his meal slowly and spent some time considering a variety of potential test-taking strategies. With a broad smile, Naruto placed the money on the counter after finishing the bowl of vegetable soup and hurried out of the ramen stand. Tucci yelled after the boy, who merely waved back at the elderly man who was still smiling, "See you later, Naruto." Kakashi instructed them to meet him this morning at Training Ground 7, where Naruto ran the remaining distance. When the boy eventually arrived at the location after 5 minutes of running, he discovered Sakura and Sasuke standing on the bridge beneath the sakura tree that was still growing near the small bridge. Before jumping on the tree and sitting down to wait for Kakashi to arrive, Naruto approached them and greeted them both. Sakura was constantly attempting to engage the young Uchiha in conversation, but Sasuke was only responding with single words. As Sakura smiled at the boy, she asked, "So Sasuke-kun, are you ready for the test?" The young Uchiha nodded, not even glancing at her, HN. As they waited for the silver-haired Junin to arrive and administer the test, they all began to grow bored. An hour had passed since they were all waiting for their sensei to arrive, and Naruto was sound asleep on the tree. Sasuke was seated at the tree's trunk, and Sakura was simply pacing back and forth in frustration. Through Shunshin, Kakashi materialized before the three of them, smiling, holding a whirl of leaves. Sakura yelled, "You're late," while gesturing up at the Junin. The sudden noise caused Naruto to fall off the tree right on top of his head, and Sasuke leapt to his feet and threw a kunai toward Kakashi, which the Junin easily avoided. What kind of Junin, really, is late for everything? The young girl glared at the man, thinking. With his eye making an upside-down U, Kakashi apologized, saying, "Sorry about that. A black cat crossed my path and I had to turn around and trace my steps before taking the long way here so that I wouldn't have bad luck for the rest of my life." Sakura was going to say something more, but Kakashi walked right by them to a post and set a timer. "What?" Sakura exclaimed. Sasuke pointed to the girl with the pink hair and the vein that was protruding from his forehead and yelled, "Why the hell do you have to be so loud?" Sakura had never seen the boy snap before, and she looked at him as though she was about to duck back into a shell for safety. Naruto was still holding his head with a large lump on it when Kakashi passed them and put down the timer clock he had brought. He grinned and pushed the timer button down. "Let's get started, shall we?" He produced 2 bells from his pocket after saying, "It's set for noon." Naruto gazed awestruckly. What sort of test for survival was this? "You have until noon to get a bell from me." Whoever doesn't get a bell from me by noon will go without lunch. You'll be tied to these posts and watch as whoever gets a bell eat their food in front of you," explained Kakashi as he examined the three. Sakura remarked, "But Sensei, there are only 2 bells and 3 of us." "Oh, that's so that one of you is tied to the post and disqualified. That one goes back to the academy. Of course all 3 of you could flunk out too. You can use any weapons or skill against me. If you do not come at me with the intent to kill, you will not get a bell," Kakashi clarified for the 3 freshmen. As Naruto finished thinking, a kunai emerged from his sleeve, prepared for action. When he discovered his hand stuck behind his head with the kunai aimed at the back of his head, he hadn't even blinked. Kakashi had one hand over his head and the other firmly grasping his wrist. Kakashi laughed and said, "I didn't even say start yet." The youngster grinned and said, "He's fast." All of them gazed down at the Junin as he held Naruto, who was fighting to break free of his firm hold. They hadn't seen him move. When he finally let go of the yellow-haired boy, he leapt away and took an orange book out of his pocket. After saying this, Kakashi buried his face in the book and said, "Okay, get ready then. Start." Sasuke leapt at Kakashi to try to get the bells as soon as he finished speaking. He attempted to punch Kakashi in the head, but the seasoned Junin easily ducked and countered by trying a leg sweep against the young Uchiha. Sasuke leapt into the air, avoiding his teacher's counter, and kicked the Junin in the head. Kakashi just raised his left hand to block the young boy's attack. His years of experience warned him of an impending danger just as he was about to kick the boy. He quickly kicked the Uchiha in the stomach, sending him crashing to the ground, then caught the incoming kunai and held it in his hand while he waited for Naruto to emerge from behind the tree he was standing behind. Unsteadily, Sasuke got to his feet and turned to see Kakashi standing in the center of the training area, still holding his book. When the young Uchiha saw Naruto leaping out from behind the tree, he picked himself up and prepared to attack once more. Sasuke was standing back, waiting for the chance to touch a bell, while Naruto stood in the center of the training area and Kakashi turned to face him. When Kakashi and Naruto faced off, Kakashi's head was still deep in his book, and he would chuckle every few seconds while he read it. With his fist balled up, Naruto raced toward the slothful Junin, moving at a speed that surprised Kakashi at the time. From the corner of his eye, Kakashi saw Sasuke threatening to attack him as well, so he put the book away to deal with the 2 boys. In an attempt to surprise the Junin, Naruto vanished and reappeared behind Kakashi as soon as he was 5 feet away from him. The Junin was startled when the boy transformed into a puff of white smoke after he threw a punch that was intended for Kakashi's head, but Kakashi blocked it and kicked him away. After passing through several hand seals, he thought, a shadow clone, and then he said, "Kaden. Housenka no jutsu." A flurry of fireballs erupted from his mouth in the direction of Sasuke, who was sprinting in his direction. After avoiding all of the approaching fireballs by jumping and dodging them, Sasuke went through his own hand seals before yelling, "Kaden. Gukakyu no jutsu," and a huge ball of fire erupted from his mouth in Kakashi's direction. Kakashi performed the same hand seals before uttering the words, "Kaden. Gukakyu no jutsu," and launching a fireball of the same size in the direction of the approaching attacker. The fireball's size was extremely impressive for someone so young. After a minute or so of the 2 fireballs battling for supremacy, Kakashi had to cancel his to dodge the approaching shuriken from Sakura and Naruto. The fact that they were working together to deal with him impressed Kakashi, but he was still going to put them to the test. To keep an eye on everyone in the field, Kakashi perched atop the tree. After completing the single-handed seal needed to execute his preferred ninjutsu, Naruto exclaimed, "Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," and 100 identical copies of himself materialized all over the field. The 3 were surrounded by clones, each of whom removed 10 shurikens and flung them in all directions across the field. Except for Naruto, who came up with the idea that he needed to draw out the Junin, and that was one of the less destructive ways he could do it, that surprised them all. Most of the shurikens that approached Kakashi's position were blocked by the same kunai. Some he simply stepped aside to avoid. Before saying, "Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," Kakashi leapt from the tree and performed a single-handed seal. He then made 5 clones of himself, all of whom ran in the direction of the 3 in the army of clones encircling them. The 3 genin simply stood there and marveled at the man's abilities as the clones ran toward Kakashi and his clones. Kakashi and the 5 clones quickly defeated all of the clones. At that point, the real Kakashi made the decision to pull out his book and resume reading. After eliminating every clone, Kakashi simply leaned against a tree and cancelled 2 of them. The first to get out of it was Sasuke, who who used his Sharingan before charging at Kakashi, who was leaning back and reading. However, a clone stopped him and kicked him in the abdomen, sending him flying into the yellow-haired boy. Sakura immediately began attempting to approach the young Uchiha, but a Kakashi clone leapt in front of her and removed half of the hite covering his left eye, exposing his Sharingan eye. He then swiftly put her in a basic genjutsu and she was out of there. Before she passed out on the ground, Sakura began to see leaves floating around her. The real Kakashi shook his head at how simple it was to remove the girl, while the clone vanished in a puff of smoke. Even after using his dojutsu to battle the Junin, Sasuke was struggling to keep up with him. Because he was not Uchiha, the man was able to avoid his entire taijutsu style as if he knew it personally. Despite having only 45 minutes remaining, neither of them even approached the bells. Sasuke lunged at the clone once more, kicking the man in the head, but the clone dodged and swept his legs beneath the Uchiha, making the man leap into the air. While in the air, Sasuke twisted his body and kicked the clone powerfully once more. However, the clone grabbed the boy's leg and was ready to launch him when he was struck in the back by 5 kunais, which caused him to vanish in a cloud of smoke. After landing on his feet, Sasuke turned to see Naruto grinning across from him. Before turning to confront the final clone, Sasuke approached the boy and they exchanged high fives. While Sasuke was performing a series of hand seals, Naruto ran in the direction of the clone. The clone deflected Naruto's punch that was aimed at its head. The boy with the yellow hair did a 5 backflip and landed next to the duck-haired Uchiha just as the clone was about to strike back. After Sasuke completed his hand seals and Naruto had moved away from the clone was sprinting in the direction of the two when the Uchiha yelled, "Kaden! Gukaku no Jutsu," and hurled a huge fireball in the clone's direction. After performing a few quick hand seals, the Junin clone said, "Doden! Doryu Heki no Jutsu," and a stone barrier appeared between him and the fireball. In preparation for going to retrieve the clone, Sasuke pulled out a kunai and cancelled the jutsu. As soon as the clone leapt onto the wall, he had to avoid 3 kunais. Naruto began to consider the exam they were taking. Surviving against Kakashi served as their survival test. However, that was nonsensical. When a genin faced a Junin, there was no one way that it would work. It was strange. There was an issue with this. Even though there were only 3 of them and 2 bells, Kakashi was still able to hold back against them despite their near depletion of chakra. Naruto called out to the young Uchiha, "Sasuke." The young boy replied, "HN," using his typical speech pattern. Naruto quickly removed some transparent exploding tags from his holster and said, "I figured it out. This is not about the bells, so go get Sakura. Time is almost up." "Where is she?" Sasuke inquired, staring at the boy in confusion. As instructed by Jiraiya, Naruto closed his eyes and released his chakra. He soon discovered Sakura's chakra signature, which was a drop of sweat due to how low her chakra was. Even after Naruto opened his yes, he could still see the clone standing atop the rock wall, waiting for them to initiate contact. Naruto directed Sasuke to the young girl's location, saying, "She is behind the bushes to the west." Sasuke dashed over to the bushes where Sakura lay unconscious. As he was about to retrieve her, Naruto said, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," and a lone clone materialized next to him. Taking ink from his cargo pocket, the clone began sketching seals on the transparent tag. The clone was still drawing the seals on the paper, and as soon as he finished, he would put them on a kunai. The real Naruto ran in the direction Sakura and Sasuke were to inform them of the plan. On the tree, Kakashi wanted to remove the clone, but he wanted to know what it was doing. As the clone quickly drew the symbols on the paper and then wrapped them around the kunais, the Junin stood on the tree, raising one eyebrow. In the meantime, Naruto and Sasuke simply stood over Sakura's unconscious body because they had shaken her and she had not yet woken up. Sasuke was irritated by the fact that neither of them was yet proficient in waking someone from a genjutsu. Additionally, Naruto was growing irritated because they were running out of time to complete the test. Naruto suddenly had an idea and directed some of his chakra toward the girl's body, causing her to wake up and scream. Sakura exclaimed, "Kami, Sasuke. Kun is dead." Naruto and Sasuke perspired as they stared at the girl, thinking, "What the fuck?" Sasuke glared at Naruto for the nickname after he sweated and exclaimed, Sakura. The Teme is right here, he's not dead." An irritated Sasuke turned to face the girl and said, "HN. The Dobi is right. I'm right here." Sakura sobbed even harder when she looked up and saw Sasuke standing next to Naruto, his hands in his pockets, looking perfectly normal. Sakura yelled. Sasuke.kun. You're okay. I saw Kakashi. Sensei cut your head off in front of me before I passed out, as she rushed to embrace the boy. With a frustrated expression on his face, Sasuke asked the girl, will you please get off of me? Naruto looked at them and remarked, Sakura, calm down and pay attention. We don't have much time, guys. Sakura screamed, don't talk to me like that baka, as she got off of Sasuke, glaring at the yellow-headed boy. Before Sasuke interrupted, Naruto began, okay guys, listen. I figured out the purpose of this test. He said, to get the bells and not get sent back to the academy, right? No. The test's goal is to force us to cooperate as a team. Naruto continued, glancing at the two, who merely gave him a dumbfounded look. Sakura smirked as she looked at the boy and asked, then why does he have only 2 bells? To put us against each other. He's a Junin and we are straight out of the academy. Do you really think we can beat him one-on-one? He's stronger than he appears to be. He's been holding back since the beginning of the exam to check us out. Our only way to pass this exam is through teamwork. Concluded Naruto, who had an expression on his face. Sasuke was the first to realize the yellow-haired boy's point of view after witnessing Kakashi's abilities. Sakura was taken aback when Sasuke nodded to the boy because she didn't believe Sasuke needed Naruto's assistance to pass the test. After a while, she turned to face him and nodded. With the kunai waiting for them, the three made their way back to the opening where the clone had finished. They all halted behind the clone and waited to devise a strategy to defeat the Junin. To come up with a plan, Naruto placed his thumb and index finger under his chin. Okay, here's the plan. Before telling Sasuke to follow suit, he pulled the shurikens from his holster and gave them to Sakura. Together, they gave Sakura all of their shurikens. Naruto looked at the boy and said, Sasuke, me and you will be doing the heavy attacks with taijutsu and ninjutsu. Sasuke nodded. Naruto smirked at the girl, who merely gave him a glare in return. Sakura, since you have no skill whatsoever, attack him from afar with the shurikens to keep him on his toes, Naruto said. They both nodded at him and said, okay. Ready. The boy with the yellow hair said, let's go, and he and Sasuke began to run at a remarkable pace in the direction of the Junin. Leaping from the earth wall, Kakashi began to run in the direction of the two. In a full-on taijutsu battle, the three of them sparred, with Kakashi easily defeating the other two. While Sakura stood waiting for the chance to throw the kunais, they were all fighting quickly and both of them were able to keep up with the Junin. After roughly 3 minutes of the taijutsu battle, Naruto turned to face Sasuke and nodded before they both leapt back, leaving Kakashi with an arched eyebrow. Naruto yelled, now Sakura, as Sasuke threw a smoke bomb, and she began hurling the shurikens and kunais in the general direction that they had left Kakashi. Before shouting, Fuden Daitopa no Jutsu, the Junin performed a few hand seals. He then used the only wind-style jutsu he possesses, despite having many others in his arsenal, to clear the smoke that was obstructing his vision. He noticed several shurikens and kunais approaching him as the smoke gradually cleared. He revealed his right eye, activated his Sharingan, and began dodging and blocking kunais and shurikens as if his life depended on it. They really going all out, huh? I did tell them to attack like they intended to kill, he said. He avoided 3 kunais, and as soon as they got past him, they changed into Naruto clones in a cloud of smoke. They then stole the Junin's bells and fled. Before Naruto could even activate the seals on his kunais, Kakashi raised his hands in surrender. After throwing one bell to Sakura and another to Sasuke, Naruto waited for Kakashi, who was approaching them with a solemn expression. When Kakashi finally arrived in front of the 3 people who had been waiting for him, he gave them his trademark smile. Kakashi eyed them and said, you 3, pass, congratulations. Yippee! Naruto leapt aloft and danced. Kakashi told them, so you figured out the point of the test, huh? Sasuke curtly replied, grinning. Yeah, we figured it out, since you only had 2 bells and Pervy Sage always told me that a team was a 3 ninja cell. So we had to come up with a plan that included all 3 of us, Naruto delighted in telling his sensei. Kakashi only said, Pervy Sage? That's my guardian, Naruto replied, turning to face his sensei. Naruto interrupted Kakashi before he could finish, saying, okay. We are officially known as Team Kakashi now. Naruto grinned and said, I think we should put the name of the team to a vote. Naruto, Kakashi, and Sakura raised their hands and greeted each other, saying, anybody for Team Kakashi? After performing a few hand seals and declaring, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto immediately surrounded them with 100 clones. Kakashi perspired. Naruto had deceived him. As all of the clones and Sasuke raised their hands, Naruto grinned and said, "Now, anybody for Team Bad, ass?" Naruto looked at the man in front of him and laughed, "Ha ha ha ha. That's 102 to 2. So the team is officially known as Team Bad Ass." Kakashi simply ruffled their hair before grinning at Sakura as Naruto and Sasuke gave each other another high five. "Okay. Now we have to report the result to the Hokage at the Hokage Tower." Kakashi began to leave the training area, being closely followed by the three children. When Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and their sensei Kakashi reached the Hokage Tower 10 minutes later, they knocked on the elderly Kage's office and waited to be allowed entry. The Sandaime Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves, Sarutobi Hiruzen, heard the knock on the door and beckoned them inside. As the team entered, they noticed that the Hokage was conversing with a number of other teams in the tower. The 9 new rookies who graduated from the academy were identified by the other teams. Since the Hokage was already discussing something different with the other teams, they waited for him to speak to them while standing in the back of the group. Before he realized that his life was in jeopardy, Kakashi pulled out his book and opened it. When he looked, he saw Kurenai staring at him with daggers, so he did the only thing he could do, bring the book closer to his face. Kurenai continued to glare at him as he began reading his book. He didn't even bother to look at her. After 2 minutes, Sarutobi concluded his conversation with the other teams and turned to face Team Bad Ass, though he was still unsure of their name. "Okay. Team Kakashi," he started, but Naruto cut him off. Naruto smirked at the elderly man and said, "It's Team Bad Ass now Hokage. GG." Sarutobi raised an eyebrow at Kakashi, but the man simply shrugged and returned his book to his pocket. Everyone knew who came up with such a name just by looking at them. "Team Bad Ass huh?" the elderly man asked, glancing at the group. Sarutobi asked, glancing at Naruto, "Who came up with that name?" Sakura pointed at Naruto, while Kakashi kept his hands in his pockets as Naruto and Sasuke pointed at one another. "I should have known it was you, Naruto." "Well, anyhow, all the teams start doing missions tomorrow, so y'all can go get some rest and take the rest of the day off," told Sarutobi.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.